Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was the Fox God, Emperor, the true ruler of all. Factions Naruto x Ophis x Rias Gremory, High School DxD. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Dimensional Convergence. The night sky fractured like broken glass above Kuo Town. Stars winked out of existence as reality itself seemed to fold inward, creating a spirally vortex that pulsed with ancient power. The distortion wasn't visible to human eyes, but to the supernatural beings engaged in battle below, it blazed like a second sun, golden red and ominous with promise. What the hell is that? Rainer, a fallen angel with raven wings spread wide, paused mid-attack. Her light spear flickered as her concentration wavered. Across the abandoned construction site, Kaneko Tuju's white hair reflected the strange light as she dropped into a defensive stance. Behind her, Rias Gremory's crimson energy crackled between elegant fingers, her blue eyes narrowing at this unexpected development. Bushu, Akano Himahima whispered, her usual playful demeanor replaced with caution. That's not devil energy, or angelic, it's something else entirely. Rias nodded, her strategic mind working through possibilities. This territorial dispute with fallen angels had been inevitable after they'd violated the boundaries of her domain, but the timing of this anomaly was too perfect to be coincidence. Above them, the spatial tear widened. Time seemed to slow as golden particles drifted down like autumn leaves, each one humming with power that made the very air vibrate. The particles began gathering, coalescing into a humanoid shape that gradually solidified between the two warring factions. A man stood where emptiness had been moments before. Tall and commanding, with wild blonde hair that seemed to capture the essence of sunlight. 6 curious whisker-like marks adorned his face, 3 on each cheek. His eyes, however, caused both devils and fallen angels to take involuntary steps back. Vertical pupils like a predator's, set in irises that shifted between crimson and gold with each heartbeat. He wore an elegant black kimono with orange trim, intricate seal work embroidered along its edges in golden thread. 9 tomo patterns circled the back, arranged in 3 rows of 3. Power radiated from him in waves, ancient and unfathomable, neither demonic nor holy but something that transcended both. Children, he said, his voice carrying easily despite its soft tone. Your squabble is disturbing my arrival. Rainer recovered first, pride overriding her instincts. Who the hell do you think you are, interfering in fallen angel business? She manifested another light spear, this one crackling with malevolent purpose. Whatever you are, you've chosen the wrong place and time. The man tilted his head, regarding her with something between amusement and mild disappointment. He didn't speak, didn't move. Yet suddenly Rainer found herself frozen in place. Her wings locked mid-beat, the light spear disintegrating in her grasp. I think, he said conversationally, now standing directly before her despite having made no visible movement, that you misunderstand the hierarchy here. His finger touched her forehead gently. Let me clarify. Rainer's eyes widened, her pupils dilating as images flooded her consciousness, a fox large enough to dwarf mountains. 9 tails sweeping across landscapes, civilizations rising and falling beneath his gaze across millennia, dimensions being shaped and reshaped by his will, and a name that reverberated through the core of her being. Kurama, she whispered, then immediately shook her head. No, Naruto, Fox God, Emperor of the Ninth. She dropped to her knees, wings folding submissively. Forgive me, I didn't recognize. Few would, he replied, stepping away. It's been a very long time since I walked this particular reality. His gaze swept over the fallen angels. Azazel's children have grown bold in my absence. On the opposite side, Rias Gremory stepped forward with the dignity befitting the heiress of House Gremory, though her hand subtly signaled her peerage to remain alert. Welcome to Kuo Town, stranger. I am Rias Gremory, and this territory falls under my family's protection. Naruto turned, his expression warming slightly as he observed her. The crimson-haired princess of destruction. Your reputation extends beyond your years, daughter of Gremory. He inclined his head, not a bow between equals, but an acknowledgement that carried respect nonetheless. I am Naruto Uzumaki, though I've carried many names across the ages. Some once called me the Fox God Emperor. I'm not familiar with that title in devil history, Rias replied diplomatically. You wouldn't be. My domain extends beyond Devil Ken, predating your great war. His eyes crinkled with amusement. Though I'm impressed by your composure, princess. Most would be demanding proof or explanations by now. Rias maintained her elegant posture. I find actions reveal more than words or titles. Your arrival has distinctive characteristics. Diplomatic as well as powerful. The Gremory reputation for exceptional airs seems well earned. Naruto glanced around the construction site, taking in the evidence of the interrupted battle. Scorched metal, cracked concrete, the lingering scent of ozone from demonic energy. However, I didn't cross dimensional boundaries merely to witness territorial disputes. The remaining fallen angels had regrouped behind Rainer, uncertainty evident in their postures. One whispered something, and Rainer nodded, rising slowly to her feet. Lord Azazel will want to know of your return, she said, her earlier arrogance replaced with cautious respect. May I inform him you've arrived? You may tell your leader that the ninth stirs once more, Naruto replied. And that I'll be establishing my domain on Sacred Fox Mountain. He'll understand the significance. Rainer's eyes widened slightly. That mountain has been abandoned for millennia. Yes, since I last walked this realm. Naruto made a dismissive gesture. Go. We'll speak again when the proper authorities have been assembled. Quote, the fallen angels departed with uncharacteristic haste, leaving the devil peerage alone with the mysterious newcomer. Naruto turned his full attention to Rias and her group. You have questions, daughter of Gremory? Ask them. He gestured to a nearby stack of construction materials, which rearranged itself into a comfortable seating area with a casual wave of his hand. Time is one luxury I possess in abundance. Rias nodded to her peerage, and they maintained defensive positions while she approached. You claim to predate the Great War, yet you appear human, or at least humanoid. Are you a god from another pantheon? Not exactly. Naruto settled onto one of the makeshift seats, his movements fluid and graceful. Gods are bound to concepts, worship, and specific domains. I exist differently. The closest approximation in your terminology would be primordial entity, though that's not entirely accurate either. Akeno stepped forward, her shrine maiden heritage giving her unique insight. You manipulate natural energy like a yokai, but at a scale I've never witnessed. Perceptive, Naruto nodded. The kitsune of this world are, in a manner of speaking, distant descendants of my essence, though much diminished through the generations. I am to them what the original devils would be to modern devil kind. Kaneko, normally stoic, visibly tensed at the mention of yokai. Her nostrils flared slightly as she caught his scent more carefully. You smell like home, she whispered, then immediately retreated behind her expressionless mask. Naruto's gaze lingered on the small white-haired girl, understanding flickering in his ancient eyes. Nekomata have good memories, even across generations, he said gently. Your people remember the time when all yokai lived under my protection. Rias processed this information with remarkable composure. If you truly are who you claim, why return now? And why here, specifically? Cycles complete themselves, princess. Prophecies unfold. Naruto leaned forward, and for a moment, his human appearance seemed to waver, revealing something vast and ancient beneath. The balance between factions has grown precarious. Heaven weakened by God's absence, hell fractured by civil conflict, fallen angels seeking purpose, old gods fading, new threats emerging from the shadows. He straightened, the momentary glimpse of his true nature concealed once more behind his human appearance. As for, why here, this town sits at a convergence of ley lines. It's why devil families claimed it originally. But beneath those newer energies lies a much older power nexus, one that once anchored my domain to this realm. Kiba, who had remained silent and observant, finally spoke. You mentioned establishing your domain on Sacred Fox Mountain. That's less than 20 miles from Kuo town. Indeed, we'll be neighbors, young knight. Naruto smiled, but there was something predatory in the expression. I trust that won't be a problem for your master. The question carried weight beyond its simple phrasing, a test of Rias's diplomacy and wisdom. The crimson-haired devil princess measured her response carefully. Kuo town remains under Gremory protection, but we have no claim on Sacred Fox Mountain. Historical records note it as neutral territory that no faction has successfully claimed. She met his gaze directly. If you truly are its original owner, we would have no grounds for objection. Well answered. Naruto stood in one fluid motion. I've taken enough of your evening. The fall. Angels won't return tonight. Word of my arrival will spread quickly among the factions. Expect your own leadership to contact you soon. Before he could depart, Rias asked one final question. These prophecies you mentioned, what exactly do they foretell? Naruto paused, looking back over his shoulder. The rise of the ninth. The return of balance through imbalance. The convergence of powers under one throne. His expression grew distant. The awakening of forces long dormant. A change in the very nature of reality itself. With those cryptic words, golden particles swirled around him. And he vanished as mysteriously as he had appeared, leaving the Devil Peerage standing in the abandoned construction site with far more questions than answers. Bushu, Akeno said softly, what do we do? Rias was already retrieving her phone. We contact my brother immediately. Whatever just happened goes far beyond our authority to handle alone. As the young devils departed, none noticed the small dimensional crack that remained where Naruto had vanished, or the single, calculating eye that observed through it before the fissure sealed itself completely. In the dimensional gap, EALM of swirling chaos and nothingness that existed between worlds, Ophis floated in contemplative silence. The infinite dragon god, appearing as a young girl with gothic Lolita fashion despite her unfathomable power and age, had felt the dimensional barriers ripple with a power that rivaled her own. Interesting, she murmured, her voice echoing strangely in the formless void. Very interesting. She had been fighting for control of this realm against Great Red for longer than most civilizations had existed. The intrusion of another entity with sufficient power to navigate between dimensions independently was unprecedented in recent cosmic history. Ophis waved her hand, creating a viewing portal that showed Sacred Fox Mountain, a seemingly ordinary peak shrouded in mist and ancient forests. To most observers, it appeared unremarkable, but Ophis could see the ancient power matrix buried deep within it beginning to reactivate after eons of dormancy. Fox God, she whispered, testing the name. Emperor of the Ninth. The titles resonated with something in her primordial memory, fragments of knowledge from the universe's earlier iterations. A smile slowly formed on her childlike face, not the innocent expression it appeared to be, but something ancient and calculating. Perhaps you'll be useful in my conflict with Great Red. Or perhaps, she tilted her head, considering possibilities, you'll prove an even more interesting distraction. With that thought, she closed the viewing portal and drifted deeper into the dimensional gap, plans already forming in her ageless mind. Sacred Fox Mountain had been abandoned for so long that nature had reclaimed most of its surface. Ancient shrine ruins peeked through tangled vegetation, worn stone foxes standing silent guard along overgrown paths. For centuries, humans and supernatural beings alike had avoided the mountain, driven away by a subtle aversion that couldn't be explained but couldn't be overcome. As Naruto materialized at the summit, the entire mountain seemed to shudder in recognition. Dormant energy matrices buried deep in the earth awakened, sending ripples of golden light along forgotten ley lines. Ancient seals carved into cave walls glowed with renewed purpose, and the very air hummed with expectation. Hello, old friend, Naruto murmured, kneeling to press his palm against the stone beneath him. It's been far too long. The mountain responded, a subtle tremor that wasn't quite physical vibrating through the bedrock. Memories encoded in stone and soil awakened, echoes of a time when T's peak had been the center of a vast domain, when nine tails had swept across the sky and reality itself had bent to the will of the fox god. Naruto stood, surveying his former domain with eyes that saw beyond the physical. Beneath the surface decay lay the foundations of what had once been a magnificent shrine complex, larger on the inside than physically possible in normal space. With deliberate movements, he began walking the perimeter of the summit, golden energy trailing from his fingertips to sink into the ground. As he walked, the mountain transformed. Vegetation parted to reveal ancient stone pathways. Broken torii gates straightened and restored themselves, weathered red paint refreshing to brilliant vermilion. Moss-covered stone lanterns cleaned themselves of centuries of grime. inner flames igniting with foxfire that burned blue gold in the night. The transformation spread downward from the summit in a spiral pattern, following the path of Naruto's energy. By the time he completed his circuit, the upper portion of the mountain had been restored to its former glory, a magnificent shrine complex that blended seamlessly with the natural landscape while subtly defying normal spatial limitations. At the center, where there had been only bare rock moments before, stood a traditional Japanese palace, elegant in its simplicity yet awe-inspiring in its perfect proportions. 9 fox statues guarded the approach, each larger and more detailed than the last, culminating in a magnificent 9-tailed kitsune whose eyes gleamed with the same shifting red gold as Naruto's own. "A beginning," he said, satisfaction evident in his tone. The outer shell renewed. "Tomorrow, we awaken the deeper systems." He entered the palace, which responded to his presence by illuminating. With warm light from paper lanterns that floated without support, the interior expanded impossibly, revealing corridors and rooms that couldn't physically fit within the external dimensions. At the art lay a meditation chamber with a circular pool of water so still it mirrored the ceiling perfectly. Naruto settled beside this pool, assuming a lotus position as naturally as breathing. His reflection wavered, shifting between his human appearance and something vastly more vulpine and powerful, 9 tails spreading like a fan behind an elongated fox-like silhouette. "The board is set," he murmured. "Now to awaken the pieces." He closed his eyes, and his consciousness expanded outward, touching ancient bindings and forgotten pacts across the world. In remote regions, sealed yokai stirred in their slumber. In hidden shrines, ceremonial masks trembled on their display stands. In the depths of oceans and the heights of mountains, creatures of myth and legend raised their heads, sensing the return of a power they had thought lost forever. And in Kyoto, in a hidden palace guarded by illusion and tradition, a beautiful woman with golden fox ears and 9 flowing tails suddenly froze mid-ceremony. Her golden eyes widening in shock and disbelief. "Impossible," Yusaka whispered, her tails bristling with agitation. "He has returned. The Occult Research Club room in Kuo Academy's old school building buzzed with tension and speculation. Rias Gremory sat behind her ornate desk, her expression thoughtful as she finished recounting the night's events to the holographic projection of her brother. Sears Lucifer, one of the 4 great Satans who ruled the underworld, maintained a casual demeanor that belied the seriousness with which he took his sister's report. His crimson hair, so similar to Rias's own, seemed to glow in the projection's blue light. "You're certain he called himself the Fox God Emperor?" Sears asked, his voice measured. "Yes, brother, and he specifically mentioned establishing his domain at Sacred Fox Mountain." Rias leaned forward slightly. The name meant something to the fallen angel Rainer. She recognized it immediately after he showed her something interesting. Sears's expression revealed nothing, but Rias knew her brother well enough to recognize the calculation behind his casual tone. "There are records, very ancient ones, that mention an entity by that title. They date back to before the Great War, possibly even before the biblical god established his system." Akino, standing beside Rias, raised an elegant eyebrow. "Records that aren't in the standard historical archives, I presume?" "Indeed," Sears nodded. "Information reserved for the Mao and a few select archivists. The Fox God Emperor was considered a myth, a primordial entity that supposedly ruled over yokai and natural spirits before withdrawing from this realm entirely." "He didn't seem like a myth," Kiba remarked from his position by the window. "His power was overwhelming. Not like demonic energy or holy power. Something different entirely. Natural energy," Kaneko said quietly from her corner, surprising everyone with her contribution. "Pure, ancient, like the foundation of the world." Sears focused on the small Nekomata with sudden interest. "Your yokai instincts recognized it." Kaneko nodded once, her expression guarded but certain. "He smelled like home. Like something my blood remembers. That aligns with the fragments of lore we possess," Sears said. "According to legend, all yokai, kitsune, Nekomata, Tengu, and others, were originally aspects of the fox god's power, given independent existence to serve as his eyes and ears throughout the world." "Are we facing a threat, brother?" Rias asked directly. "His power is unlike anything I've encountered, but he made no hostile moves. In fact, He intervened in our confrontation with the fallen angels. Sears considered for a long moment before responding. I honestly don't know, Rias. If he truly is who he claims to be, his power would rival or exceed that of the heavenly dragons. But ancient records suggest he maintained neutrality during the original conflicts between factions. He mentioned prophecies, Rias added. Something about the rise of the ninth, and convergence of powers under one throne. This information caused a visible reaction from Sears. A momentary widening of eyes quickly controlled. I see. That's significant. You recognize those phrases? Rias pressed. There are prophecies recorded in the deepest archives of the underworld. Sears admitted. Fragments of prediction that predate Devil Society as we know it. When balance fails and ancient evils stir, the ninth shall rise again, bringing convergence beneath the ninefold throne. It was considered metaphorical by most scholars. Akino frowned thoughtfully. Given recent events, God's death, the fragmentation of the three factions, the stirring of the Chaos Brigade, one could argue that, balance failing, is an apt description of our current situation. A concerning interpretation, but not without merit, Sears agreed. For now, maintain observation but avoid confrontation. I'll consult with the other Mao and reach out to Azazel. If the fallen angels received the same message we did, he'll be investigating as well. And if this fox god approaches us again? Rias asked. Be diplomatic but cautious. Accept no binding agreements without consultation. Sears' expression softened slightly. And Rias, be careful. Even myths have foundations in truth, and the truths behind this particular myth might be more dangerous than any of us realize. The projection flickered and disappeared, leaving the Occult Research Club in thoughtful silence. Well, Akino said finally, breaking the tension with her usual playful tone, it seems we've attracted the attention of yet another impossibly powerful being. How exciting. Your definition of exciting continues to concern me, Kiba replied with a resigned smile. Rias rose from her desk, moving to the window that overlooked the darkened school grounds. I'm more interested in why he chose to appear now. And why here specifically. He mentioned a convergence of ley lines beneath Kuo, Akino reminded her. Perhaps the location is significant to whatever he's planning. Or perhaps, Rias mused, there's something happening that we're not yet aware of. Something that requires the intervention of a being old enough to be considered mythical even by devil standards. None of them had answers. But as they dispersed for the evening, each member of the peerage found their thoughts returning to the mysterious figure with fox-like eyes and power that made reality itself tremble. Dawn broke over Sacred Fox Mountain in a spectacle of color that hadn't been witnessed in millennia. The restored shrine complex gleamed in the early light, mist curling around Rebuild. T-structures in patterns too precise to be natural. Throughout the night, the restoration had continued spreading downward, reclaiming nearly a third of the mountain's surface. Naruto stood on a wide, wooden platform that extended from the main shrine, overlooking forests that stretched to the horizon. He had changed from his formal kimono to a more practical outfit, black hakama pants and a deep range koso shirt with subtle seal patterns woven into the fabric. His feet remained bare, maintaining direct contact with the sacred ground. The world has changed significantly in my absence, he said, apparently to empty air. Yet the undercurrents remain familiar. Power, ambition, fear of the unknown. From behind him, a voice responded, young, female, and utterly devoid of the emotional lections that characterized human speech. You speak as though you expected otherwise. Naruto didn't react to the sudden appearance of the girl in gothic Lolita dress who stood several paces behind him. Ophis, Ouroboros dragon, Infinite One, you've taken an interesting form in this iteration. As have you, Fox God. Ophis tilted her head, studying him with ancient eyes set in a childlike face. Your current vessel is nearly human. How? Limiting. Form follows function, Naruto replied, finally turning to face her. And my functions in this realm require certain adaptations. Ophis approached, moving with the unnatural grace of a being not bound by physical laws. You've chosen an interesting time to return. The old order fractures. New powers emerge from unexpected quarters. As that concern I detect. Infinity Dragon. How unlike you. A smile touched Naruto's lips, not mocking, but genuinely amused. Has isolation in the dimensional gap made you sentimental? Pragmatic, Ophis corrected, stopping a few paces from him. Your emergence shifts existing power structures. Creates possibilities for your endless conflict with Great Red. Naruto raised an eyebrow, still trying to reclaim your home in the dimensional gap. I see. Millennia pass, and some obsessions remain constant. Ophis's expression didn't change, but the air around her rippled slightly with suppressed power. As does your tendency toward misdirection. You haven't answered why you've returned. Haven't I? Naruto gestured expansively, encompassing the restored shrine and the world beyond. The wheel turns. Cycles complete. The ninth rises when balance fails. Prophecy, Ophis said dismissively. Temporal constructs designed to influence probability. Yet you've sought me out within hours of my arrival. Naruto observed. Curiosity, or concern that my presence might interfere with your plans. Both, Ophis admitted with the directness characteristic of her nature. Your domain once intersected with the dimensional gap. Your power resonates with its frequencies. Understanding dawned in Naruto's eyes. You think I might provide leverage against Great Red? An alliance of convenience. The thought occurred. Naruto laughed, the sound startlingly warm and human compared to their otherwise otherworldly conversation. Direct as ever, Ouroboros. Some things truly never change. He stepped closer, moving into her personal space with a familiarity few beings in any dimension would dare. Let me be equally direct. I haven't returned merely to delve myself in draconic territory disputes. My purposes are broader and deeper. The rise of the ninth, Ophis quoted. The convergence of powers. Among other things, Ophis studied him for a long moment, her ageless eyes searching for deception and finding none, not because it wasn't present, but because Naruto's true intentions existed on levels even she found difficult to perceive. You intend to establish dominance over the factions, she said finally. To create a unified order. Not dominance, Naruto corrected. Harmony through hierarchy. The factions have forgotten their places in the greater design. They require reminding. Starting with the yokai, Ophis observed. Your energy signatures have already awakened dormant spirits across 3 continents. The Kyoto Fa. Seishin stirred significantly during the night. Naruto nodded, unsurprised by her awareness. Natural, given their connection to my essence. The Kitsune leader, Yusaka, I believe, will likely make contact soon. And the 3 factions will react according to their natures, Naruto replied. Devils will seek advantage. Angels will consult ancient texts. Fallen will investigate directly. He smiled slightly. Azazel is probably already planning his approach. Ophis took a step back, her assessment apparently complete. Your return creates ripples. Ripples create opportunities. For both of us, perhaps. Naruto's expression became more serious. The dimensional gap has always existed adjacent to my domain, Ophis. There might be arrangements beneficial to both our interests. Interest flickered in the dragon god's otherwise emotionless eyes. I will observe your progress. If your actions align with my goals, then we may find common purpose, Naruto finished. As we have in previous cycles. This statement caused Ophis to pause, the first hint of surprise crossing her features. Previous cycles. You claim we've encountered before. Reality is less linear than even you perceive, Infinite One. Naruto's eyes shifted fully to crimson for a moment, vertical pupils elongating. My consciousness spans iterations you've forgotten. Before Ophis could respond to this cryptic statement, Naruto raised a hand in a gesture that was both greeting and dismissal. But those are discussions for another time. I believe you have a dragon to observe, and I have a domain to restore. Ophis studied him for another long moment before nodding once. Until our paths cross again, Fox God. A ripple in reality, and she vanished, returning to the dimensional gap as effortlessly as stepping through a doorway. Naruto remained still for several minutes after her departure, his expression thoughtful. Interesting, he murmured. She doesn't remember. This iteration truly has fragmented the continuity more than I anticipated. He turned back to the vista before him, his gaze focusing on the distant shape of Kuo town. Which means the prophecies are further advanced than expected. Time grows short. With that cryptic observation, he began the next phase of his work, golden energy flowing from his hands into the mountain beneath him, awakening systems and structures that had lain dormant since before the Great War had reshaped the supernatural world. In the gleaming halls of the Gremory Castle in the underworld, a council of power had assembled with unusual haste. Round a massive table carved from a single piece of bloodwood sat the four current Mao, Seers X Lucifer, Seraphol Leviathan, Ajuka Beelzebub, and Falbium Asmodeus, along with Graphia Lucifuge, Lord and Lady Gremory, and several elder devils whose bloodlines connected them to the original founding families. The Fox God Emperor, Lord Gremory repeated, his expression troubled. A name I haven't heard outside of ancient mythology courses at the Academy. Because that's all he was supposed to be, Falbium Asmodeus said, his perpetually tired expression more alert than usual. A myth from before recorded devil history. A primordial entity who supposedly ruled natural spirits before withdrawing from this dimension entirely. Supposedly, Ajuka Beelzebub emphasized, his calculating green eyes reflecting his internal computations. Yet Rias's report describes a being of immense power who manipulates natural energy on a scale that would rival ultimate-class devils. Not rival, Seers X corrected quietly. Exceed, significantly. This statement brought uncomfortable silence to the table. Seraphol Leviathan, whose usual bubbly persona had been replaced by the seriousness befitting her position as Mao, leaned forward. You've accessed the sealed archives, haven't you, Seers X-chan? She asked. The ones even we four aren't supposed to open without consensus. Seers X nodded without apology. Given the circumstances, I felt it necessary. What I found, he paused, choosing his words carefully, suggests that our understanding of supernatural history may be incomplete. Incomplete how? Lord Gremory pressed. The original Lucifer left records indicating that before the biblical God established heaven, before the original Mao formed the underworld, there existed a power structure centered around natural energy and yokai spirits. Seers X placed an ancient scroll on the table, its parchment yellowed with extreme age. He called it, the realm of the ninth Tai, and described its ruler as, the fox god whose 9 tails represent the 9 realms under his dominion. 9 realms? Graphia questioned, her perfect composure showing the slightest crack of curiosity. Like the Norse cosmology, different conception, Seers X explained. According to these records, the fox god divided reality into 9 domains: elements, spirits, beasts, seasons, celestial bodies, underworld, dreams, human realm, and something translated only as the beyond. A comprehensive cosmological system, Ajuka noted with intellectual interest, predating our own, and on. That apparently went dormant rather than being defeated, Seers X continued. The texts suggest that the fox god withdrew voluntarily, sealing his power and domain for reasons not fully explained. The Great War occurred during his absence, reshaping supernatural politics into the 3 factions we know today. With fragments of his original system incorporated into each, Falbium added, showing uncharacteristic engagement. Natural spirits and yokai continued existing but diminished, no longer connected to their source. Lady Gremory, who had remained silent until now, spoke with the wisdom that had earned her respect across the underworld. If these records are accurate, and this entity has truly returned, what are his intentions toward Devil Society? Toward the balance of power established since the Great War? Unknown, Seers X admitted, but potentially concerning. He spoke to Rias of prophecies, the rise of the 9th, and convergence of powers under one throne. Recon. Ishin flashed across several faces at the table. The 9-fold prophecy, one of the elder devils whispered. I thought it mere allegory. As did most scholars, Seers X agreed. But if the fox god has returned, and specifically referenced this prophecy, then he intends to re-establish his ancient dominion, Ajuka concluded. The question becomes, over what, exactly? And how will it affect our current power structures? We should eliminate the threat immediately, one of the elder devils suggested. Combined, the 4 Mao could. Could what, exactly? Seraphol interrupted, her LD-like appearance belied by the ancient power in her eyes. Attack a being who predates our entire civilization, who withdrew by choice rather than defeat, without knowing his full capabilities or intentions. Seraphol is right, Seers X said firmly. Hasty action could provoke a response we're unprepared to handle. For now, Observation and diplomatic contact seem the wiser course. Azazel has already arranged a meeting. Falbium noted, surprising several others with this information. My sources indicate he's approaching Sacred Fox Mountain tomorrow, alone as requested. The fallen move quickly, Lord Gremory observed. As should we, Ajuka countered. I propose a formal delegation, not confrontational, but official. Establish diplomatic relations while assessing capabilities and intentions. Discussion continued for hours, strategies proposed and rejected, historical records consulted and debated. By the time consensus was reached, dawn was breaking over the underworld's artificial sky. It's decided then, Sirzex concluded. I will personally make contact, accompanied by Graphia, in 3 days' time. Until then, we maintain observation and gather all available informa. Qian on this, Fox God Emperor, and the ancient system he supposedly ruled. As the council dispersed, Sirzex remained seated, studying the ancient scroll with troubled eyes. One passage in particular, had caught his attention, words written in the original Lucifer's own hand. Should the 9 tails rise again, the very foundations of our reality may shift. Not through violence or conquest, but hero the remembrance of what came before. For we devils, angels, and fallen are but newcomers to a stage whose true master merely stepped behind the curtain, watching, waiting for the moment when balance would require his return. Issei Hyodo was having a very strange day. It had started normally enough, oversleeping, rushing to school while trying not to think about the rejection from Uma, who had mysteriously stopped returning his texts, arriving at Kuo Academy just in time to avoid detention. Standard fare for the self-proclaimed future harem king. But from there, things had taken a decidedly unusual turn. First, the entire school had been buzzing with rumors about a mysterious foreigner who had purchased Sacred Fox Mountain and was reportedly renovating the abandoned shrine at its summit. Normally, real estate transactions wouldn't register on Issei's radar of interesting topics, which primarily centered on breasts, anime, and more breasts, but even he couldn't ignore. Read the excited whispers about golden lights, seen hovering over the mountain the previous night. Second, the Occult Research Club members, including the great ladies of Kuo, Rias Gremory and Akano H. Amehima, had been uncharacteristically tense all day, engaged in hushed conversations that ceased whenever other students approached. And third, most bizarrely of all, Issei now found himself face to face with a strange blonde man who had appeared literally out of nowhere while Issei was taking a shortcut home through the park. Can I help you? Issei asked uncertainly, clutching his school bag like a shield. The man smiled, whisker-like marks on his cheeks crinkling. Actually, Issei Hyodo, I believe I might be able to help you. You know my name. Issei took an instinctive step back. Look, if this is about those magazines under my bed, I can explain. The stranger laughed, the sound surprisingly warm and genuine. Your recreational reading isn't my concern. I'm more interested in your recent dating history. Specifically, a young woman named Yuma Amano. Issei's expression darkened. What about her? She stood me up and ghosted me. Story of my life. Did she? The blonde man tilted his head, eyes shifting to an unsettling crimson. Or do you perhaps remember a date in this very park? A request for a favor? A light spear through your abdomen? Issei froze, memory suddenly rushing back. Yuma's transformation into the fallen angel Rainer, her cruel words, the excruciating pain as she impaled him, the certainty of death, and then nothing. His hand instinctively went to his stomach, where no wound existed. What the hell? He whispered. How did I forget that? How am I even alive? Interesting questions, the man replied, with complicated answers that intersect with your future, your true nature, and a sacred gear of considerable power sleeping within you. Sacred what? What are you talking about? Who are you? Issei demanded, confusion rapidly turning to anger. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, though I've been called many things across the ages. The man, Naruto, stepped closer, his presence suddenly seeming to fill the entire park despite his human appearance. And you, Issei Hyodo, are a human with a dragon sealed inside you. A very specific, very powerful dragon whose awakening was temporarily delayed by my intervention last night. Issei stared, his brain struggling to process this information. A dragon. Inside me. Like, metaphorically, literally, Naruto corrected. The Red Dragon Emperor, D-Drake. One of the heavenly draw. Gone sealed in a sacred gear called the Boosted Gear. Under normal circumstances, Rias Gremory would have revived you as a devil after Rainer's attack, binding you to her service in exchange for a second chance at life. Wait, Rias Gremory, the most beautiful girl at school. Despite the surreal situation, Issei's priorities remained consistent. She would have made me her servant. Would there be a sexy uniform involved? Naruto sighed, though a hint of amusement lingered in his expression. Your reputation for single-minded focus appears well earned. Yes, you would have joined her peerage as a devil. However, my arrival has altered certain destined paths. So what happens now? Issei asked, surprisingly accepting of this bizarre turn of events. If I'm not going to be Rias Senpai's servant, what am I supposed to do with a dragon inside me? That, Naruto said, is entirely up to you. I've merely prevented your premature death and given you the opportunity to make an informed choice about your future. He extended his hand, palm up, where a small flame of golden energy danced. Touch this, and you'll understand the truth of supernatural factions, sacred gears, and the POW are sleeping within you, without the binding contracts that would normally accompany such knowledge. Issei hesitated only briefly before reaching for the flame. As his fingers contacted the golden energy, information flooded his consciousness. Images of angels and devils, fallen angels and yokai, dragons and sacred gears, wars and treaties, power scales and faction politics, and at the center of it all, a massive red dragon sealed within his soul, watching him with ancient eyes. Holy shit, Issei gasped, staggering back as the knowledge integration completed. It's all real, all of it, indeed. Naruto withdrew his hand, the flame disappearing. You now stand at a crossroads, Issei Hyodo. With the knowledge I've given you, you can approach Rias Gremory yourself and request to join her peerage with full awareness of what that entails. You can seek out the fallen angels or the church. You can even attempt to navigate the supernatural world as a human sacred gear wielder. Or, Issei sensed there was another option being offered. Or, Naruto confirmed, you can come to Sacred Fox Mountain in 3 days' time and learn about a different path entirely, one that predates the factions currently vying for power. Why me? Issei asked, a moment of genuine insight breaking through his usual persona. I'm just a pervy high school student with bad grades and worse luck with women. Why would someone like you care about my choices? Naruto's expression softened slightly. Because the Red Dragon Emperor's power doesn't discriminate based on academic achievement or social graces. Because potential takes many forms. Not all of them immediately apparent. And because sometimes, Issei Hyodo, the most unexpected vessels contain the greatest possibilities. With those words, Naruto stepped backward into what appeared to be a folding of space itself, disappearing as suddenly as he had arrived and leaving a very confused, very thoughtful Issei standing alone in the park. A dragon, Issei murmured, placing a hand over his heart where he could now sense a dormant power pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. I have a freaking dragon inside me. For perhaps the first time in his life, thoughts of harems and breasts took secondary position in Issei Hyodo's mind as he contemplated the supernatural world suddenly opened before him, and the choices that would determine his place within it. As night fell over Kuo town, 9 distinct energy pulses radiated from Sacred Fox Mountain, invisible to human perception but blindingly obvious to supernatural senses. Each pulse traveled along different frequencies, awakening dormant connections and stirring ancient memories across the world. In Kyoto, Yusaka felt the pulse resonate with her very essence, confirming what she had suspected the previous night. The fox god had returned, and the call singing through her blood could not be ignored. Preparations for a journey began immediately. In the underworld, Archive ISTS reported that sealed texts had begun glowing with internal light, ancient languages translating themselves into modern script as though responding to an unspoken command. In heaven, systems that had been operating on automated functions since God's death registered anomalous energy patterns that matched no known angelic or demonic signature, prompting Michael to order a comprehensive review of the oldest celestial records. In the hidden strongholds of the Chaos Brigade, seers and prophets fell into simultaneous trances, speaking in languages long forgotten about the rise of the Ninth, and the Fox God's return. And in a modest apartment in Kuo town, Issei Hyodo dreamed of a vast landscape where 9 massive tails swept across the sky, rearranging stars into new constellations. That spelled out destinies yet to unfold. In the dream, a voice that was both Naruto's and something far more ancient spoke directly into his soul. The wheel turns, the 9th rises, and you, bearer of the red dragon, stand at the nexus of what was and what shall be. When he awoke, Issei found a single fox footprint burned into his bedroom floor, a marker visible only to him, pointing the way to Sacred Fox Mountain and the choices that awaited him there. The Fox God Emperor had returned, and reality itself was beginning to remember what that meant. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Echoes of Divinity. Golden moonlight spilled across ancient wooden floors as Yusaka knelt before the sacred mirror of Inari. 9 fox tails fanned behind her, each tip glowing with ethereal blue flame that cast dank shadows throughout Kyoto's innermost shrine. Her golden eyes reflected the mirror's surface, which showed not her own image but rippling scenes from across Japan, hundreds of kitsune awakening from identical dreams. Their eyes wide with wonder and disbelief. It cannot be coincidence, she whispered, her melodious voice carrying the weight of leadership that had defined her reign as Lady of Kyoto for centuries. All kitsune, from the eldest 9 tails to the youngest kit, sharing the same vision on a single night. Beside her, a small figure stirred, her daughter Kuno, barely 9 years old but already showing the regal bearing that marked her bloodline. Unlike her mother, Kuno possessed only a single tail, its golden fur matching her eyes. Mother, she said hesitantly, who is he? The man with fox eyes who walked through fire without burning. Yusaka's expression remained composed, but her tails betrayed her agitation, their movements becoming less controlled. If the visions speak true, he is someone from our deepest histories. Someone I never expected to encounter in my lifetime. She rose in a single fluid motion, her elaborate shrine maiden attire rustling softly. Mirror's surface changed at her gesture, now showing a mountain bathed in golden light, Sacred Fox Mountain, its recently restored shrine complex visible from miles away to those with supernatural sight. The Fox God Emperor, Yusaka breathed, a complex mixture of reverence and uncertainty in her tone. Progenitor of all kitsune, the 9-tailed sovereign whose dominion once encompassed all natural spirits. But how? Asked an elderly voice from the shadows. Elder Toshi, oldest of Kyoto's Kitsune Council, stepped forward, his 7 tails moving stiffly with age. The ancient texts claim he withdrew from this dimension eons ago. Before the Great War, before the 3 factions established dominance. Yet the signs are unmistakable, Yusaka replied. Sacred Fox Mountain awakens. The dreams call to our blood. The very essence of kitsune kind stirs in recognition. She turned to face the elder directly. You feel it too, Elder Toshi. The pull toward that mountain. The instinctive recognition that transcends conscious memory. The elder couldn't deny it. His eyes briefly flickered with golden light, an involuntary response that revealed the truth of her words. If it truly is him, Toshi said carefully. What does his return mean for our people? For the careful balances we've established with other factions. Yusaka's gaze returned to the mirror, where the image of Sacred Fox Mountain continued to pulse with golden energy. It means everything changes, she said simply. The Fox God Emperor stands above faction politics. His authority predates the current supernatural order. You intend to go to him? Toshi observed. Not a question. I must, Yusaka confirmed. The call in our blood cannot be denied. As leader of Kyoto's yokai, as the strongest 9-tailed kitsune in Japan. It falls to me to make first contact and understand his intentions. The journey is perilous, Toshi cautioned. Not because of distance, but politics. The territory between here and Sakura. Fox Mountain crosses boundaries claimed by multiple factions. Devils control Kuo town nearby. Fallen angels have been unusually active in the region. Which is why I travel alone, Yusaka stated with finality. A small delegation risks less provocation than an official entourage. Mother. No. Kuno's single tail bristled with alarm. You can't go alone. At least take the royal guards. Yusaka knelt to her daughter's level, placing gentle hands on her shoulders. My sweet Kuno. No guards, no matter how skilled, could protect me from threats that would target the Lady of Kyoto. But a single traveler, properly disguised. She smiled reassuringly. Besides, I am hardly defenseless. As if to emphasize her point, her 9 tails momentarily flared with intense power, the blue flames growing to illuminate the entire shrine before subsiding to their usual ethereal glow. Elder Toshi will guide the council in my absence, Yusaka continued, rising again. And you, daughter, will continue your studies. The fox god's return may herald significant changes for our people. You must be prepared. Kuno wanted to object further but recognized the resolve in her mother's eyes. Instead, she straightened her small shoulders and nodded with all the dignity she could muster. I understand, mother. I will make you proud. Yusaka's expression softened. You already do, every day. She turned to Elder Toshi. Prepare the council for my departure at dawn. And send word through our networks. All kitsune are to remain calm and await my report. No independent approaches to Sacred Fox Mountain will be tolerated. As the elder bowed and withdrew to carry out her instructions, Yusaka returned to the sacred mirror. With a gesture, the image shifted again, showing a close-up of the Sumi-Chi shrine where a solitary figure stood gazing at the moon, blonde hair gleaming silver in the moonlight, whisker marks visible on his cheeks, eyes reflecting crimson even at this distance. Fox God, she whispered. Too quietly for even Kuno to hear. What dreams have called you back to us? And what will your return demand of your children? The figure in the mirror seemed to turn his head slightly, as though hearing her across the miles, a subtle smile forming on his lips before the image dissolved back into reflective silver. Dawn painted Kuo Academy in gentle amber light as students trickled through its gates. Morning conversations creating a pleasant buzz of normalcy. Among them walked Rias Gremory, her crimson hair catching the sunlight like living flame, her aristocratic bearing drawing admiring glances without effort. To casual observers, she appeared no different than any other day, composed, elegant, perhaps a touch distant in her beauty. But those who knew her well would have noticed the slight tension around her eyes, the barely perceptible caution in her movements as she scanned the school grounds with more than human senses. You're being paranoid, Akino murmured beside her, maintaining her usual smile despite her own heightened awareness. I doubt he would approach so directly. Not here. Perhaps, Rias acknowledged quietly. But unpredictability seems central to his nature. And after Onisama's call this morning about the sealed texts in the archives. She trailed off as they entered the main building, both devil heiresses projecting perfect MPO sure while their supernatural senses remained on high alert. The events at the construction site 2 nights ago had left Rias with a profound sense of having glimpsed something beyond her experience. A feeling rare for someone raised in the complex political landscape of the underworld's nobility. The school day proceeded with deceptive normality through morning classes. During lunch break, Rias retreated to the Occult Research Club's room in the old school building, spreading ancient texts across the ornate table. Some were from the school's own hidden collection, others had been transmitted magically from the Gremory family archives after her brother's call. Fragmentary at best, she muttered, comparing passages across different texts. References to the 9 realms under the Fox throne. But nothing concrete about their structure or governance. Akino placed a cup of tea beside her. Perhaps that's significant in itself. If this entity predates written devil history, oral tradition, Chion may have been the primary method of knowledge transmission. True, Rias conceded, gratefully accepting the tea. But frustrating nonetheless. How do we prepare for an entity whose very nature is shrouded in myth? The same way we approach any unknown, Kiba suggested as he entered, returning from his patrol of the school grounds. Observation. Gathering data. Identifying patterns. Speaking of observation, Akino said, anything unusual during your rounds? Kiba shook his head. Nothing obvious, but, he hesitated. But, Rias prompted, there's a subtle energy shift throughout the campus. Not demonic or holy, more like, he searched for the right description. Like when you walk into an ancient forest and feel watched by something that has no name. Rias frowned. This matched her own vague sense of disquiet since arriving that morning. Could he be observing from a distance? Possible, Akino agreed, though it feels more like. The door opened again, admitting Kaneko with her usual stoic expression. But the small Nekomata halted abruptly 3 steps into the room, her nose twitching and her eyes widening fractionally, a dramatic reaction by her standards. He's here, she stated flatly. In the school, the 3 other club members stiffened, immediately extending their supernatural senses. Rias began gathering her power of destruction energy, Crimso. Light flickering subtly around her fingertips. Where? She asked tersely. Kaneko closed her eyes, focusing on her yokai senses. Everywhere, and nowhere specific. Like his essence is, she struggled to articulate the sensation. Like it's in the very ground beneath the school. A soft chuckle from the window interrupted her explanation. All 4 devils turned sharply to find Naruto sitting casually on the windowsill. One leg drawn up, arm resting on his knee. He wore what appeared to be a Kuo Academy teacher's uniform, though none of them recalled seeing him among the faculty. Perceptive little Nekomata, he said, his tone appreciative rather than mocking. You sense the truth of it. My essence has been part of this land since long before any school stood here. Rias maintained her composure despite the shock of his sudden appearance. Fox God, she acknowledged, neither hostile nor welcoming. You've chosen an interesting method of approach. Have I? Naruto smiled, his whisker marks crinkling. I merely thought we might continue our conversation in a more civilized setting than an abandoned construction site. Your club room is quite impressive, very atmospheric. He slid from the windowsill into the room proper, moving with fluid grace that seemed almost too perfect for a physical body. Besides, I was curious to observe devil education methods firsthand. Your integration into human society is quite thorough. Why are you here? Rias asked directly, dispersing the destructive energy she had gathered but remaining vigilant. At this school specifically, several reasons, Naruto replied, wandering to examine the occult artifacts displayed around the room. This location sits at an interesting convergence point, ley lines beneath, faction territories above. Human and supernatural worlds overlapping. He paused at a glass case containing what appeared to be an ordinary ceremonial mask. And of course, there's you. Me. Rias raised an elegant eyebrow. The Gremory heiress, sister to Lucifer, wielder of the power of destruction. Naruto turned to face her fully, his eyes shifting momentarily to their true vulpine state. A young devil of Rima. Arcable potential positioned at the crossroads of coming changes. The directness of his assessment made Rias reassess her approach. This wasn't a random encounter or mere curiosity, he had sought her out specifically. These coming changes, she said carefully. They relate to the prophecies you mentioned. The rise of the ninth. Among other things, he confirmed. Though prophecy is perhaps the wrong term. Inevitable cosmic correction might be more accurate. Kiba shifted subtly, placing himself in a better position to protect Rias if needed. And what role do you see for Devil Society in this correction? An excellent question, young knight. Naruto's expression became more serious. The current 3-faction system, angels, devils, fallen, emerged during my absence from this dimension. It represents an interesting evolutionary path, but an incomplete one. Incomplete how? Akeno asked, her usual teasing tone absent. It ignores fundamental aspects of cosmic balance, Naruto explained. Natural spirits, yokai, dragons, even humans with sacred gears, all critical components treated as peripheral by the dominant powers. His eyes met Rias's directly. Your brother and other current Mao understand this better than most devils. It's why they've pursued peace talks with Michael and Azazel. This statement confirmed what Rias had suspected. He possessed detailed know-how edge of current supernatural politics despite having only recently returned. And you intend to what? Correct this imbalance personally, she asked. Not through conquest, if that's your concern. Naruto replied with unexpected gentleness. But yes, balance must be restored. The 9 realms must be acknowledged once more, with proper representation and authority. With you as the ultimate authority, Rias noted, not a question. Naruto smiled, neither confirming nor denying. I came today not to threaten or intimidate, but to extend an invitation. He approached her desk, manifesting an elegant scroll from golden energy that condensed into physical form. 3 days from now, representatives from all factions will be welcomed at Sacred Fox Mountain for a formal summit. Your brother will receive an official invitation through appropriate channels, but I wish to extend this one personally. Rias accepted the scroll cautiously. Why me specifically? Protocol would dictate such invitations go to faction leaders only. Because you represent the future, princess. Naruto's expression held something almost like fondness. The old order changes, yielding place to new. And you, I suspect, will play a significant role in shaping what comes next. Before she could respond, the ambient energy in the room shifted subtly. Naruto glanced toward the door a moment before it opened to admit Sona Citri. Her expression as composed as always despite the tension evident in her posture. President Gremory, she began formally, then stopped as she registered Naruto's presence. Her eyes narrowed behind her glasses. I was unaware you had a visitor. An unexpected one, Rias confirmed. Sona Citri, may I present? Naruto Uzumaki. Understanding flashed in Sona's eyes. Clearly, she had been briefed about recent events. The one who claimed Sacred Fox Mountain. Reclaimed would be more accurate, Naruto corrected mildly. But yes, he offered a respectful nod that acknowledged her position without subservience. The Citri heir, known for strategic brilliance and water magic expertise. Your reputation precedes you, as does yours, apparently, Sona replied coolly. Though most believed it merely legend. A common misconception I'm currently rectifying. Naruto moved toward the window again. I've delivered my invitation and observed what I came to see. I'll leave you to your studies. He paused at the windowsill, looking back at the assembled devils. A word of advice. The texts you're consulting are incomplete at best, deliberately misleading at worst. The true history of the 9 realms was systematically obscured during the Great War. Why tell us this? Rias asked. Because understanding requires complete information. His expression turned enigmatic. And because the choices you make in coming days should be informed ones. With that cryptic statement, he simply vanished. Not teleportation in the devil's sense, with magical circles and energy discharge. But a seamless merging with the ambient energy of the room, leaving no trace of his presence except the scroll on Rias's desk. For several long moments, no one spoke. Then Sona adjusted her glasses with practiced precision. I believe, she said with characteristic understatement, that we have much to discuss. Yusaka moved through the ancient forest with practiced stealth, her 9 tails and fox ears concealed by powerful illusion magic that rendered her indistinguishable from an ordinary human woman. She wore simple traveling clothes, hiking boots, jeans, and a light jacket. That would attract no attention if she encountered humans along her journey. She had traveled half the distance from Kyoto to Sacred Fox Mountain, intentionally avoiding major transportation hubs. Here supernatural factions might maintain surveillance. Though physically capable of covering the entire distance in a single day, she deliberately maintained a measured pace, using the journey time prepare mentally for the encounter ahead. As afternoon sunlight filtered through the forest canopy, she paused beside a small stream, kneeling to drink from cupped hands. The water tasted different here, sharper, more alive than it should be. Extending her supernatural senses, she realized the stream itself had awakened, its spiritual essence responding to some external stimulus. The land remembers, she murmured, watching ripples form patterns too organized to be natural. Even water recalls its true master. A twig snapped behind her, and Yusaka was instantly alert, dropping into a defa NSIVE stance as 3 figures emerged from the underbrush. Fallen angels. 2 male, 1 female, their black wings partially extended in clear display of power. Well, the female said, twirling a light spear casually between her fingers. A lone traveler in forbidden territory. How unfortunate for you. Yusaka maintained her human disguise, assessing her options. While confident in her ability to defeat these 3, revealing her true identity as Kyoto's leader would create diplomatic complications she preferred to avoid. I wasn't aware this forest fell under fallen angel jurisdiction, she replied calmly. I'm simply passing through. That's the problem, said the taller male, his light spear manifesting with a crackle of energy. No one simply passes through this area. It's a designated security zone under Governor Azazel's direct authority. Yusaka noted their nervous energy, the way their eyes constantly scanned the surroundings. These weren't random rogues, they were official sentries, likely posted to monitor approaches to Sacred Fox Mountain. I mean no harm to your faction, she assured them. If this is restricted territory, I'll gladly take another route. Too late for that, the female replied, her smile turning cruel. Security protocols are quite clear. Unauthorized intruders must be detained for questioning. The fallen angels spread out, adoptee. Ing practiced formation that suggested formal military training. Yusaka sighed internally. This confrontation was precisely what she'd hoped to avoid. Please reconsider. She offered one final diplomatic opening. I have no quarrel with the Gregory. Then surrender peacefully, the shorter male countered, light spear aimed at her heart. Governor Azazel will determine your fate. Yusaka considered revealing her identity, but hesitated. If Azazel had established a security perimeter around Sacred Fox Mountain, he clearly had specific interest in the fox god's return. Being detained, even temporarily, would delay her arrival and potentially complicate Kyoto's position. Decision made, she gathered her power, preparing to disable rather than kill, when the atmosphere suddenly changed. The temperature dropped several degrees in an instant, and the very air seemed to thicken, as though reality itself had become more substantial. The fallen angels sensed it too, their expressions shifting from confidence to confusion. Then to alarm as golden particles began materializing around them, swirling in complex patterns. Stand down, came a voice from everywhere and nowhere at once. She travels under my protection. The forest blurred, and suddenly a fourth figure stood between Yusaka and the fallen angels, Naruto, dressed now in traditional hakama and haori, orange and black with nin. Itomo symbols embroidered along the sleeves. The fallen angels reacted instantly, light spears aimed at this new threat. Identify yourself, demanded the female. Naruto merely smiled, making no aggressive move. Your governor would be most displeased to learn his sentries threatened the Lady of Kyoto within my domain. His eyes shifted to their true vulpine state, glowing softly in the forest shadows. Even more displeased to learn they then threatened me directly. Recognition dawned on the taller male's face. The fox god, he whispered, his light spear flickering as his concentration wavered. Lord Azazel described you, but we didn't expect to encounter me personally. Naruto finished. Understandable. Yet here we are. His tone remained conversational, but power radiated from him in palpable waves. You have two choices. Depart immediately to report this encounter to your governor, or remain and discover firsthand why even Azazel approaches my mountain with caution. The fallen angels exchanged glances, their decision obvious before they spoke. We'll inform Lord Azazel of your intervention, the female said, carefully neutral, and of the Lady of Kyoto's presence in the region. A wise decision. Naruto made a dismissive gesture. Go. They didn't need further encouragement, wings spreading as they launched skyward and vanished among the clouds. Only when they had completely disappeared did Naruto turn to face Yusaka directly. For a moment, neither spoke. Yusaka found herself frozen, centuries of composure momentarily abandoned as she stood before the entity her people had revered through generations of oral history. Her disguise magic dissolved without conscious thought, revealing her true form, 9 golden tails spreading behind her, fox ears emerging from her blonde hair. Her eyes shifting to their natural vulpine state. Instinct took over. She dropped to one knee, head bowed in the traditional posture of a kitsune acknowledging their true sovereign. Fox God Emperor, she said, her voice steady despite the emotions churning beneath her composed exterior. This one greets the progenitor of all kitsune with profound honor. Yusaka of Kyoto places herself at your disposal. Rise, Yusaka, Naruto replied, his tone gentler than she expected. Formality has its place, but not here, not between us. She looked up, surprised, to find M watching her with an expression that held neither the cold authority of a ruler nor the distant benevolence of a deity, but something more complex, recognition, respect, and a hint of something almost like fondness. You're earlier than I anticipated, he continued as she rose gracefully to her feet. The dreams only reached your people 2 nights ago. The call in our blood could not be ignored, Yusaka explained. As leader of Japan's yokai, it fell to me to respond first. Naruto nodded, studying her with eyes that seemed to see far more than her physical form. You've maintained the old ways admirably. Kyoto's barrier systems, the traditions, the connections to natural energy. He smiled slightly. Even without direct guidance, kitsune remain true to their essence. We remember, Even when we don't understand what we remember, Yusaka replied. The stories of the Fox God Emperor have been passed through generations, though much has been lost to time. As intended, Naruto said cryptically. Some knowledge is best preserved through instinct rather than conscious retention. He gestured to the stream beside them, which had begun flowing in unnatural patterns, water spiraling upward against gravity. The land remembers too. It recognizes its original sovereign. Yusaka watched the waters dance with wonder, feeling the spiritual essence of the entire forest awakening around them. The other yokai factions have also experienced stirrings, dreams, premonitions. The Tengu of Mount Kurama report their ancestral shrines glowing with golden light. Natural resonance, Naruto explained. All yokai, regardless of type, carry fragments of my original energy signature. My return activates those dormant connections. He began walking along the stream, gesturing for her to join him. Tell me of Kyoto, Yusaka. Of how my children have fared in my absence. As they walked, she found herself speaking with unexpected openness, describing Kyoto's yokai society, their diplomatic balance with other supernatural factions, the challenges of maintaining ancient traditions in the modern human world. Naruto listened attentively, occasionally asking insightful questions that revealed profound understanding of governance and politics. And your daughter, he said eventually. Kuno. She is well. Yusaka couldn't hide her surprise. You know of her. I have been peripherally aware of significant developments, even during my absence, Naruto explained. A young kitsune princess born with unusual potential would register in that awareness. She is well, Yusaka confirmed, maternal pride warming her voice. Headstrong, curious, already showing aptitude for illusion magic beyond her years. She will be important in what comes, Naruto said, his tone shifting to something more formal. As will you, Lady of Kyoto. They had reached a small clearing where the forest opened to reveal Sacred Fox Mountain in the near distance, its restored shrine complex gleaming in late afternoon sunlight. The sight momentarily stole Yusaka's breath. Golden energy visibly flowed across the mountain's surface, ancient structures shimmering with power that radiated outward in precise geometric patterns. What comes? She asked softly, returning to his cryptic statement. What purpose has called you back to this realm, Fox God? Naruto's expression grew serious, ancient power briefly visible beneath his humanoid appearance. Balance restoration, covenant renewal, the re-establishment of the 9 realms under a unified authority. He turned to face her directly. The 3 factions, angels, devils, fallen, have maintained an unstable equilibrium since the Great War. But that system is fracturing. Old evils stir, forgotten dangers reawaken, and you intend to, what? Replace the current power structure? Yusaka asked carefully. Not replace, transcend. Naruto gestured toward his mountain. The 9 realms existed before the 3 factions emerged. They continued existing, merely fragmented and unacknowledged, after I withdrew. My return simply restores proper recognition of cosmic reality. Yusaka processed this with the political acumen that had made her an effective leader for centuries. The current faction leaders will resist. They've grown accustomed to autonomy. Some will, Naruto agreed. Others already recognize the inevitable. Urzex Lucifer has consulted the sealed archives. Michael reviews the oldest celestial records. Azazel approaches my mountain tomorrow, alone, seeking understanding rather than confrontation. This information confirmed Yusaka's suspicions about the fallen angel sentries. And yokai, what role do you envision for us in this restored order? Your people are direct descendants of my essence, Yusaka. The firstborn among my children. Naruto's eyes softened. Your place in the 9 realms was always one of honor. That hasn't changed. She recognized both the reassurance and the careful diplomatic phrasing that avoided specific promises. And Kyoto, our established territories and governance, remain yours to administer, he confirmed. I have no interest in micromanaging established systems that function effectively. My concern is with the greater cosmic architecture, the fundamental principles that govern interaction between realms and powers. Relief mingled with continued caution in Yusaka's response. You speak of significant change, yet promise minimal disruption. Many would find that contradictory. Many lack perspective spanning multiple dimensional iterations, Naruto replied with a hint of amusement. The most profound changes often appear subtle on the surface. He gestured toward the mountain again. We should continue this discussion at the shrine. Night approaches, and I've prepared suitable accommodations for the first of my expected visitors. As they resumed walking, now directly toward Sacred Fox Mountain, Yusaka felt the weight of responsibility pressing upon her. She had come seeking answers about the Fox God's return. She would leave as the first faction leader to officially acknowledge his authority, a position that carried both privilege and risk. 3 days from now, Naruto said as they walked, representatives from all major factions will gather at my mountain. A formal summit to establish diplomatic recognition and discuss the restoration of the 9 realms. All factions. Yusaka raised an eyebrow. Devils, angels, fallen, and yokai together. Such a gathering hasn't occurred since before the Great War, Naruto finished. Yes, the wheel turns. Patterns repeat with variations. He glanced at her with those ancient eyes that held millennia of memories. You will represent all yokai at this summit, Yusaka of Kyoto. Your voice will help shape what comes next. The responsibility was enormous, but Yusaka straightened her shoulders, 9 tails fanning with renewed purpose. I will prepare accordingly, Fox God. Naruto, he corrected gently. Between us, at least. Titles have their place in formal settings, but we have much to discuss that transcends such formalities. This simple gesture, the offering of his personal name, carried profound significance in yokai culture, where names held power and personal identity was sacred. Yusaka inclined her head, accepting both the honor and the implied equality it suggested. Naruto, she repeated, tasting the name that had become legend among her people. Then I am simply Yusaka to you as well. His smile in response held genuine warmth, and for a moment, Yusaka glimpsed something beyond the Fox God Emperor of legend, something more human, more approachable, yet no less profound in its complexity. They continued toward the mountain as sunset painted sky in colors that seemed more vibrant than natural, as though reality itself celebrated this reunion between the Fox God and the daughter of his essence who had maintained his legacy through centuries of absence. In the sterile white conference room deep within Vatican City, Michael, leader of Heaven's forces since God's death, studied the ancient scroll with troubled eyes. Unlike his more militant siblings, Michael's countenance radiated gentle compassion, his 12 golden wings folded neatly behind him as he contemplated the text before him. This confirms it then? Asked Gabriel, the most beautiful of the seraphs. Her expression concerned as she watched her brother. Yes, Michael replied softly. The energy signature detected over Japan matches these descriptions perfectly. The Fox God Emperor has returned. Gabriel moved closer to examine the scroll, a document so ancient it predated the Bible itself, written in a language that even most angels couldn't decipher. These symbols, they're unlike any angelic script I've seen. Because they aren't angelic in origin, Michael explained. This text was found by Father himself, preserved from a previous cosmic iteration. It describes the 9 realms and their sovereign, the Fox God whose tails represent the 9 fundamental aspects of reality. And Father acknowledged this being? Gabriel asked, surprise evident in her voice. More than acknowledged. According to these records, Father consulted with the Fox God before establishing Heaven's current structure. Michael's expression grew distant. There are passages suggesting that aspects of our sacred gear system were adapted from principles originally developed within the 9 realms framework. This revelation clearly disturbed Gabriel, whose our standing of cosmic hierarchy had always placed God unambiguously at the summit. Why was this knowledge not shared more widely? Because Father chose to seal it, Michael said simply. After the Fox God withdrew from this dimension, Father determined that knowledge of the 9 realms might create confusion about divine authority. The system he established, heaven, earth, underworld, was designed to function independently. Yet now this Fox God returns, Gabriel noted. What does that mean for our system, especially with Father? She couldn't complete the sentence, even now. That's the question we must consider carefully. Michael acknowledged. The system continues functioning on the foundations Father established, but his absence creates vulnerabilities. If the Fox God intends to restore his original authority structure, he trailed off, but the implication was clear. Heaven's position in the cosmic hierarchy might be fundamentally challenged. We've received an invitation, Gabriel said after a moment, producing an elegant scroll that pulsed subtly with golden energy. To a summit at Sacred Fox Mountain 3 days from now. Representatives from all factions are apparently being summoned. All factions, Michael repeated thoughtfully. Not just angels, devils, and fallen, I presume. The invitation specifically mentions yokai, dragons, and other supernatural entities normally considered peripheral to our 3-faction framework, Gabriel confirmed. Michael nodded, unsurprised, consistent with the 9 realms cosmology described here. Our system recognizes ED3 primary factions with humans as a shared domain. His encompasses 9 fundamental categories of existence. Will you attend? Gabriel asked directly. I must, Michael replied. To refuse would signal hostility we cannot afford to project. But the question becomes who else should represent heaven at this summit. He looked at his sister thoughtfully. Your presence would be valuable, Gabriel. Your perspective often differs from mine in ways that provide balance. Gabriel inclined her head, accepting the assignment with characteristic grace. Should we inform the others? Raphael, Uriel, not yet, Michael decided. Too many representatives might be perceived as aggressive. Better to maintain a measured approach until we better understand his intentions. He carefully rolled the ancient scroll, returning it to its protective case. We have 3 days to prepare. Let us use them wisely. As the 2 seraphs departed to make arrangements, neither noticed the subtle distortio. And in reality near the ceiling, a tiny fissure in dimensional space through which a single eye observed before vanishing without trace. Azazel, Governor General of the Fallen Angels, approached Sacred Fox Mountain alone as requested. His 12 black wings extended in a display that was both respectful and cautiously assertive. Unlike the formality preferred by devils or the purity projected by angels, Azazel cultivated a casually disheveled appearance that belied his true power and ancient wisdom. As he landed at the base of the grand staircase leading to the restored shrine complex, he took a moment to appreciate the architectural achievement before him. In just days, what had been an abandoned mountain peak had transformed into a magnificent traditional Japanese shrine that somehow managed to be both authentically historic and subtly otherworldly. Impressive renovation timeline, he murmured to himself, rubbing his goatee thoughtfully. Either time flows differently here, or conventional physical limitations don't apply. Probably both. He began ascending the stone steps, noting how each one seemed to pulse subtly with golden energy that responded to his footfalls. The stairs themselves were testing him. He realized, measuring his power, his intentions, perhaps even his essence. A sophisticated security system disguised as traditional architecture. Clever, he acknowledged with professional appreciation. Very clever. Halfway up the mountain, the staircase opened to a wide viewing platform where a single figure awaited, not Naruto himself, but a woman of extraordinary beauty with 9 golden fox tails flowing behind her like living flames. Lady Yasaka, Azazel greeted with genuine respect, offering a bow appropriate for addressing a faction leader. I did. Expect to find Kyoto's sovereign here already. Governor Azazel, Yasaka returned the greeting with equal formality. Your reputation for perceptiveness is well earned. Most wouldn't recognize me outside my usual domain. Fox ears and 9 tails are somewhat distinctive, he replied with a smile that didn't quite reach his calculating eyes. Though I'm more interested in why Kyoto's leader arrived before the formal summit. Private consultations. The Kitsune have unique connections to the Fox God Emperor, Yasaka explained, revealing nothing Azazel wouldn't already know from historical records. My presence was requested earlier. Of course. Azazel nodded, accepting her diplomatic non-answer. And your sentries, I assume those were your people who attempted to detain my patrol yesterday. A flicker of surprise crossed Yasaka's features before her composure returned. I traveled alone, Governor. Any sentries you encountered were not mine. Interesting, Azazel thought. She doesn't know the full situation. Aloud, he simply said, a misunderstanding then. These transitional periods often create confusion. Indeed, came a new voice as Naruto materialized beside them, appearing without conventional teleportation indicators. Territorial boundaries become fluid when original sovereignty reasserts itself. Azazel turned to face the Fox God, studying him with the analytical precision that had made him the foremost sacred gear researcher across factions. What he saw both confirmed and contradicted his expectations, a being who appeared mostly human yet radiated power that defied conventional classification, neither demonic nor holy but something more fundamental. Fox God Emperor, Azazel greeted, offering a bow of precisely calibrated depth, respectful without submissive. Or do you prefer Naruto Uzumaki in this incarnation? Either is acceptable, Naruto replied with easy confidence. Though formality seems unnecessary for this preliminary discussion. After all, you came seeking information rather than presenting formal credentials. Direct and perceptive, Azazel noted with approval. Refreshing compared to the usual diplomatic dance. He gestured to the mountain around them. I must compliment your restoration work. The energy matrices underlying these structures are fascinating, neither demonic nor angelic in design, yet accomplishing similar functions through entirely different principles. Natural energy manipulation predates both your systems, Naruto confirmed. Though I've incorporated adaptations to account for current metaphysical conditions. The three continued ascending the staircase, Naruto now leading them toward the main shrine complex. Azazel noted how the stone fox statues guarding the path seemed to track their movement. Eyes glowing subtly as they passed. I appreciate the personal invitation, Azazel said, addressing the unstated purpose of his visit. Though I'm curious why you've summoned representatives from all factions rather than establishing contact through traditional diplomatic channels. Traditional channels assume traditional hierarchies, Naruto replied. My return necessitates recognition of a more fundamental cosmic structure, one that existed before the current faction system emerged. The 9 realms, Azazel stated, demonstrating his knowledge of the ancient texts. A comprehends. I've cosmological framework encompassing elements, spirits, beasts, seasons, celestial bodies, underworld, dreams, human realm, and the beyond. Naruto smiled approvingly. Your research is thorough, Governor. Most modern records have obscured or mythologized those categories. I've always found original sources more reliable than later interpretations, Azazel replied with casual modesty that disguised centuries of painstaking scholarship. Though even the oldest Gregory texts describe your domain as withdrawn, rather than destroyed, an important distinction that many overlooked. They reached the summit, where the main shrine stood resplendent in traditional Japanese architecture that somehow conveyed both ancient stability and vibrant vitality. Naruto led them to an open pavilion overlooking the valley below, where Kuo town was visible in the distance. Tea had been prepared, served in ceramics so perfect they seemed to have been created by natural processes rather than crafted. As they seated themselves on traditional cushions, Azazel noted the careful positioning, a triangular arrangement that placed all 3 participants on equal footing rather than establishing hierarchy. You've been expecting this conversation, he observed. I've been expecting you specifically, Naruto corrected. Your curiosity outweighs your caution, unlike Michael or Sirzex who will wait for the formal summit. Yusaka poured tea with the practiced grace of centuries, her 9 tails maintaining perfect poise behind her. Azazel accepted his cup with appropriate appreciation before returning to the topic at hand. So, he said directly, you intend to restore the 9 realms system. What precisely does that mean for the current faction framework? Integration, replacement, coexistence, transcendence. Naruto replied, the same answer he had given Yusaka earlier. The 3 factions will maintain their internal structures and territories, but within a broader cosmological framework that acknowledges the full spectrum of reality. With you as the ultimate authority, Azazel noted, not a question. With proper hierarchical recognition, Naruto qualified. I have no interest in micromanaging established systems that function effectively. Azazel sipped his tea thoughtfully. Many would consider this a power grab, regardless of how it's phrased. Many lack perspective. Spanning multiple dimensional iterations, Naruto countered, echoing his words to Yusaka. This isn't about power acquisition but cosmic correction. The current system is imbalanced, Governor. You sensed it yourself. The disturbances following God's death, the emergence of the Chaos Brigade, ancient sealed entities stirring in their prisons. This direct reference to God's death, a carefully guarded secret known only to faction leaders, caused Azazel's eyes to narrow slightly. You're well informed for someone recently returned from dimensional absence. I maintained awareness, even while withdrawn, Naruto explained. And some events create ripples that transcend conventional dimensional boundaries. Such as the death of a creator deity, Azazel acknowledged. Fair point. He set his teacup down precisely. What assurances can you offer that this cosmic correction won't disadvantage the Gremory specifically? We occupy an already precarious position between heaven and hell. The fallen were never intended to exist as a separate faction, Naruto said bluntly. Your origin as angels who questioned authority yet rejected devil nature makes you unique, an evolutionary branch unforeseen in the original design. Quote, Azazel tensed slightly at this assessment, but Naruto continued before he could respond. Yet that uniqueness grants you perspective the others lack, Naruto added. His tone shifting to something more approving. You stand at the intersection of multiple realms, not fully angelic, not truly demonic, connected to humanity through understanding rather than dominance or devotion. And this perspective, Azazel prompted, sensing an offer forthcoming, would be valued within the restored 9 realms structure, Naruto confirmed. The Gremory could serve as intermediaries across boundaries, researchers, explorers, innovators unrestricted by dogmatic limitations. The proposal was surprisingly appealing, Azazel had to admit. It aligned with directions he'd already been pursuing, but with official sanction rather than borderline tolerance. An interesting proposition, he acknowledged carefully, though one requiring significant trust in your intentions. Naruto smiled, seemingly pleased with Azazel's cautious approach. Which is why I invited you here before the formal summit. Of all faction leaders, you're most likely to evaluate evidence objectively rather than through ideological filters. What evidence did you have in mind? Azazel asked. In response, Naruto made a simple gesture. The pavilion around them seemed to dissolve, reality shifting to reveal what appeared to be a cosmic map, stars and galaxies suspended in 3-dimensional space around them, with 9 distinct color-coded domains overlapping in complex patterns. The 9 realms as they currently exist, Naruto explained, fragmented, unrecognized, but still fundamental to cosmic structure. Azazel stood, moving through the projection with fascination. His Rias Archer's mind immediately recognized how this model explained certain metaphysical anomalies his experiments had encountered, boundary conditions that didn't align with the 3-faction framework but made perfect sense within this more comprehensive system. Remarkable, he murmured, examining areas where the colored domains intersected. This explains the resonance patterns we've detected at dimensional boundaries. Your sacred gear research already operates at these intersections, Naruto noted. You've been intuitively working within the 9 realms framework without recognizing it explicitly. Yusaka observed silently, equally fascinated by this visualization she had never before witnessed, the true cosmic architecture underlying reality itself. After allowing several minutes for exploration, Naruto dissolved the projection, returning them to the physical pavilion. Azazel returned to his seat, expression thoughtful as he processed implications. I have hundreds of questions, he admitted, which we'll address at the summit and beyond, Naruto replied. This was merely context for the conversations to come. Azazel nodded, recognizing the diplomatic boundary being established. He'd been granted a privileged preview, but further details would require formal engagement. One final question, if I may, Azazel said. Why now? If you've maintained awareness of significant events, why return at this specific moment? Naruto's expression grew more serious, ancient power briefly visible beneath his humanoid appearance. Because the threshold has been crossed. The death of the biblical god. The fracturing of faction cohesion. The stirring of primordial entities sealed before recorded history. His eyes shifted to their true vulpine state, glowing softly in the evening light. Reality requires balance, Governor. When existing systems fail to maintain it, older patterns reassert themselves. The implication was clear, his return wasn't merely a power shift but a cosmic necessity. A correction mechanism built into reality itself. Azazel absorbed this information with the gravity it deserved. I'll convey appropriate context to my organization before the summit, he said finally. Though I suspect full understanding will require more time and evidence than a single meeting can provide. Wisdom often comes through measured consideration rather than immediate revelation, Naruto agreed. Rising to signal the conclusion of their meeting. I look forward to continuing our discussions at the formal gathering. As Azazel prepared to depart, Yusaka remaining behind. He offered one parting observation. Your approach differs from what historical records suggested. The fox god of legend was described as more absolute in his authority expressions. Forms adapt to functions required. Naruto replied with a hint of amusement. This iteration calls for diplomacy before dominance. For now, the subtle qualification wasn't lost on Azazel, who nodded in acknowledgement before spreading his 12 black wings. Until the summit, then. He launched skyward, circling once around the mountain peak before vanishing into the distance, mind already cattle. Ogging the implications of everything he'd learned, and everything that remained strategically unmentioned during their conversation. The dimensional gap rippled with unusual energy patterns as Ophis drifted through its formless void. Observing reality through countless viewing portals that opened and closed around her like ephemeral bubbles. Each showed different aspects of sacred Fox Mountai. And the beings converging upon it, Yusaka's arrival, Azazel's diplomatic overture, preparations underway in Devil, Angel, and other faction territories. Fascinating, she murmured, her childlike voice echoing strangely in the non-space. He moves with surprising subtlety for an entity of his nature. A massive red dragon materialized partially beside her. Great Red, the Apocalypse Dragon, her eternal rival for dominance of the dimensional gap. The fox god disrupts established patterns, Great Red observed, his voice rumbling through dimensional layers. His return was unexpected. By you, perhaps, Ophis replied with the faintest hint of superiority. I sensed potential disturbances in the cosmic architecture months ago. Yet you took no action, Great Red noted. Curious restraint from one normally so interventionist. Ophis didn't respond directly to this observation. Instead, she focused on a portal showing Naruto in conversation with Yusaka after Azazel's departure. His power signature resonates with primordial frequencies, predating even our emergence. Impossible, Great Red dismissed. We are manifestations of infinity and dreams, fundamental aspects of existence itself. In this cosmic iteration, Ophis qualified. But his consciousness spans iterations, bridges dimensional cycles. Her expression remained impassive, but interest flickered in her ancient eyes. He remembered me, claimed we've encountered in previous cycles I don't recall. This information caused even Great Red to pause in consideration. Memory transcending cosmic reset points. Hat contradicts established dimensional principles. Unless those principles themselves are subordinate to a framework we don't perceive, Ophis suggested. The 9 realms he references may encompass more fundamental categories than our current understanding acknowledges. Great Red's massive form shifted restlessly. You consider supporting his authority claims. I consider all possibilities that might advance my interests. Ophis replied coolly. His domain once intersected with the dimensional gap. That connection could be useful or threatening, Great Red countered. If he claims authority over all realms, including this one, then positions must be established carefully, Ophis finished. I intend to attend his summit. Observe directly rather than through dimensional apertures. Great Red's surprise manifested as ripples through the void around them. You would enter physical reality. Voluntarily diminish your power by accepting dimensional constraints. Temporarily, Ophis clarified. The potential knowledge gained outweighs momentary limitations. The massive dragon studied his ancient rival with new assessment. You believe this fox god truly represents a cosmic shift, not merely another powerful entity seeking advantage. I believe, Ophis said with uncharacteristic precision, that underestimating him would be unwise. Even for us, as if to emphasize her point. One of the viewing portals expanded, showing the moment neither had observed previously. Naruto standing alone atop his mountain, eyes closed in meditation, as reality itself seemed to bend around him. For the briefest instant, his human form dissolved, revealing something vast and incomprehensible, a 9-tailed entity of pure golden energy that existed simultaneously across multiple dimensional planes, including the very dimensional gap where they currently resided. The vision lasted only seconds before the portal collapsed, but its implications resonated between the two dragon gods like physical shock waves. Well, Great Red said finally, his usual arrogance tempered by newfound caution. Perhaps I too shall observe this summit. From an appropriate distance. Ophis merely nodded, her attention already returning to the multiple portals through which she continued gathering information, preparing for a confrontation unlike any she had anticipated in eons of existence. Night had fallen over Kuo town when Issei Hyodo finally made his decision. 3 days of intense internal debate, punctuated by his usual perverted antics to maintain appearances, had led to this moment. Standing at the base of Sacred Fox Mountain with nothing but determination and the mysterious power he could now feel pulsing within him. The invitation burned into his floor had specified the 3rd day, but instinct told him to come earlier, to seek answers before committing to a path that would irrevocably change his life. This is either the smartest or stupidest thing I've ever done, he muttered to himself. Beginning the long climb up the stone staircase. Probably stupidest, yet he continued ascending, driven by curiosity and the strange new awareness that had awakened since his encounter with Naruto. He could feel the dragon within him now, Didrag, the Red Dragon Emperor, stirring with interest at their destination. Halfway up the mountain, he encountered the first Gua, Rdian, a stone fox statue that suddenly animated, stepping into his path with eyes glowing golden in the darkness. Hello, Issei offered uncertainly. I'm here to see Naruto. He kind of invited me. Sort of. The stone fox studied him for long moments before inclining its head and stepping aside, allowing him to pass. This pattern repeated several times as he ascended, each guardian larger and more detailed than the last. Until he reached the main shrine entrance where the largest fox statue, a magnificent 9-tailed creation of stone and what appeared to be living flame, blocked his path entirely. Before Issei could speak, a warm voice called from within the shrine, "Let him pass." He is expected. The massive guardian bowed deeply before returning to its pedestal, once again appearing as ordinary stone. The shrine doors opened on their own, revealing a traditional interior illuminated by paper lanterns that floated without support. Issei entered cautiously, following a path Chi seemed to illuminate specifically for him until he reached an open room where Naruto sat beside a circular pool of water, apparently meditating. "Issei Hyodo," Naruto acknowledged without opening his eyes. "You've decided to seek answers before the appointed time." "Yeah, well," Issei shifted awkwardly. "Finding out you have a dragon inside you and the whole world is full of supernatural stuff kind of makes a guy impatient." Naruto opened his eyes, amusement evident in their crimson depths. "Fair assessment." He gestured to a cushion across from him. "Sit. Ask your questions." Issei sat, trying to maintain the respectful demeanor this situation seemed to require despite his natural inclination toward brashness. "What exactly are you? I mean, you told me about devils and angels and stuff, but you're something else." "Right. Direct as expected," Naruto noted approvingly. "I am the Fox God Emperor. The sovereign of the 9 realms. An entity who predates the current faction system by incalculable time." "Okay." Issei nodded slowly. "And what does that have to do with me? I'm just a normal high school student. Or I was, until all this started." "Normal?" Naruto raised an eyebrow. "You host one of the most powerful dragons in existence, Issei Hyodo. Your sacred gear, the boosted gear, contains power that can challenge gods when fully awakened." "That's what I don't get," Issei admitted. "If I'm so special, why didn't I know about any of this before? Why did it take nearly getting killed by my girlfriend who wasn't actually my girlfriend to find out?" "Because knowledge without context creates vulnerability," Naruto explained. "Sacred gear users who discover their powers without proper guidance often become targets before they can develop their potential." "And you're offering guidance?" Issei asked cautiously. "I'm offering choice," Naruto corrected. "Which is more than most factions would extend. Devils would bind you to service. Angels would restrict you with doctrine. Fallen would exploit your power for their agendas. And you, I recognize potential that transcends current limitations." Naruto gestured to the pool between them, where the W-8er suddenly showed an image of a massive red dragon. "The being sealed within you exists partially outside conventional faction frameworks, a power that predates the Great War, though not as ancient as my own domain." Issei stared at the dragon's image with fascination and apprehension. "Can I talk to him?" "Eventually," Naruto confirmed, "with proper preparation and training. The connection between wielder and sacred gear strengthens through compatible development." "Development how?" Issei asked, his curiosity overtaking his caution. That depends on the path you choose, Naruto replied. Each faction offers different approaches to sacred gear advancement. The devil method emphasizes combat application. Angels focus on spiritual harmony. Fallen angels prefer experimental enhancement. And your way, integration rather than utilization, Naruto said. Understanding the fundamental nature of the power rather than merely wielding it as a tool. Something about this approach resonated with Issei on a level he hadn't expected. Despite his perverted tendencies and outward immaturity, he possessed a core of genuine determination and surprising insight. You didn't answer my original question, he noted. Why me specifically? There must be lots of sacred gear users out there. Naruto studied him thoughtfully before responding. Because potential manifests in unexpected ways, Issei Hyodo. Your surface appears common, even deliberately so. But beneath that, he gestured to the pool again, where the image shifted to show something golden and radiant within Issei's chest. Surrounding but distinct from the dragon power. You possess qualities beyond the boosted gear. Qualities that align with aspects of the 9 realms currently seeking expression. This cryptic explanation only raised more questions for Issei, but before he could voice them, he noticed they were no longer alone. A beautiful woman with 9 golden fox tails had entered silently, observing their conversation with evident interest. Yusaka, Naruto acknowledged without looking away from Issei. Come meet a potential ally in what lies ahead. The Kitsune leader approached gracefully, stud. Ying Issei with ancient eyes that seemed to see beyond his physical form. The Red Dragon Emperor, she noted. Though not yet awakened. Interesting timing. Hi, Issei managed, trying desperate. Lee not to stare at her impressive figure despite his perverted nature. I'm Issei Hyodo, just a high school student. With a dragon, apparently. Yusaka's lips curved in subtle amusement. Your honest self-assessment is refreshing. Issei Hyodo. She turned to Naruto. He arrives early. Does this change tomorrow's arrangements? No, Naruto replied. Issei seeks information before commitment, a prudent approach I've encouraged. The formal summit proceeds as planned. Summit? Issei questioned. Like, important people gathering to discuss stuff. Representatives from all supernatural factions, Naruto confirmed. Devils, angels, fallen angels, yokai, and others, gathering to acknowledge the restoration of the 9 realms framework. The implications slowly dawned on Issei. And you want me there? Why? I don't know anything about supernatural politics. Precisely why your perspective holds value, Naruto explained. You approach without entrenched positions or historical biases. You see with new eyes. Yusaka nodded agreement. Fresh perspective often reveals truths obscured by familiarity. The human realm's representative should understand both ordinary human experience and supernatural potential. Wait, representative. Issei's eyes widened. I didn't agree to represent anything. Not yet, Naruto acknowledged. That decision remains yours to make. After the summit, after you've observed all factions and understood what each offers. This clarification calmed Issei somewhat, though confusion remained his primary emotion. So I just watch, listen, try to understand what's happening. For now, yes, Naruto confirmed. Knowledge before commitment, context before choice. Issei considered this, then nodded slowly. That seems fair, but I still don't understand why you're giving me these options when it sounds like other factions wouldn't. Because true sovereignty requires free alignment, not coerced service, Naruto explained, something ancient flickering behind his eyes. The 9 realms function through harmonious recognition of natural order, not imposed authority. This philosophical statement went somewhat over Issei's head, but he sped the essential principle. Choice mattered to Naruto in ways it apparently didn't to other supernatural leaders. Okay, he said finally. I'll come to this summit thing. Watch, listen, learn. Then decide. A wise approach, Yusaka approved. Naruto rose fluidly from his seated position. Return tomorrow then, Issei Hyodo. Witness the convergence of powers that will shape supernatural reality for ages to come. His expression softened slightly. And perhaps discover your own place within that new reality. As Issei departed, escorted by animated fox statues that guided him safely down the mountain in the darkness. Yusaka turned to Naruto with a questioning expression. You see something specific in him, she observed. Beyond the boosted gear, I see potential unrestricted by preconception, Naruto replied. A quality increasingly rare in beings of power. Yusaka studied him thoughtfully. You've changed since the legends describe. The fox god of our stories was more absolute in his approaches. Forms adapt to functions required. Naruto echoed his earlier words to Azazel, but with a softer tone. This iteration calls for choice before command. For now, the qualification hung between them. A reminder that beneath his diplomatic exterior lay power ancient enough to reshape reality itself, power that had once ruled 9 realms with unquestioned authority. Tomorrow, Yusaka said, redirecting the conversation, everything changes. No, Naruto corrected gently. Tomorrow, everything remembers what it always was. The wheel turns, the 9th rises, and reality itself recalls its proper form. As night deepened over Sacred Fox Mountain, golden energy continued flowing across its surface in precise geometric patterns, extending invisible tendrils across dimensional boundaries, preparing for a convergence of powers that would fundamentally alter the supernatural world and all who dwelled within it. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Trials of Sovereignty. Dawn broke over Sacred Fox Mountain in threads of amber and gold, the rising sun casting long shadows across freshly restored shrine buildings. Naruto stood motionless at the summit, eyes closed, awareness extending far beyond physical limitations. Through mystical connections re-established over the previous days, he sensed the approaching presences, faction representatives gathering for the summit, each bringing their own agenda, suspicions, and hopes. But among those approaching energies, one signature burned brighter than the others, ancient, primal, and unmistakably draconic. Moving with deliberate purpose toward his mountain. Interesting, he murmured, opening eyes that shifted between crimson and gold. Earlier than expected, behind him, Yusaka emerged from the main shrine building, her 9 tails arranged with perfect poise despite the early hour. Something concerns you. Not concern, Naruto corrected. Anticipation. It appears the Dragon Kings have decided to send their own representative before the formal summit. Yusaka's eyes widened slightly. The dragons rarely involve themselves in faction politics. This isn't merely politics, Naruto replied. It's cosmic realignment. Dragons existed before the faction system. They recognize what's happening on a fundamental level. A slight smile touched his lips. And some harbor very old grudges. Before Yusaka could inquire further, the sky darkened unexpectedly. Massive storm clouds materialized from clear blue, swirling with unnatural speed to form a spiraling vortex directly above the mountain. Lightning flashed in sapphire and silver, thunder rolling across the landscape with enough force to shake stone foundations. Dramatic entrance, Naruto noted with mild amusement. Some things truly never change. The center of the storm descended a massive draconic form, scales gleaming midnight blue with iridescent highlights, wingspan blocking the sun, 5 horned crests adorning a serpentine head. Tiamat, the Chaos Karma Dragon. Mightiest of the 5 Dragon Kings, her very presence distorting the atmosphere around her. She landed with deliberate heaviness on the wide courtyard before the main shrine. The impact cracking stone despite obvious restraint. Golden energy from the mountain immediately flowed into these cracks, repairing them even as they formed. Fox God. Her voice resonated with primordial power. The dual-toned speech of ancient dragons that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. You return uninvited to a world that has evolved beyond your reign. Naruto walked forward calmly, seemingly unconcerned by the massive dragon looming over him. Yusaka maintained her position, though tension was evident in the rigid posture of her tails. Tiamat, Naruto greeted conversationally. Still dramatic after all these millennia. The storm effects are a nice touch, more restrained than the volcanic eruptions you once favored. The dragon's massive head lowered, sapphire eyes arrowing to focus on his comparatively tiny form. You speak as though we are acquainted, yet the Tiamat you knew died in the Great Transition. Different form, same essence, Naruto replied, unfazed. Your memories may not span cosmic iterations, but your nature remains consistent, Chaos Karma Dragon. Tiamat's massive jaws opened slightly, blue flame flickering between razor teeth. You claim knowledge from beyond the reset points. Typical fox arrogance. Not a claim, a statement of fact. Naruto's posture remained relaxed despite the mounting draconic pressure that caused the air itself to shimmer around him. You've come to challenge my authority before the summit. To establish dominance hierarchies before other factions arrive. Predictable, yet unnecessary. Unnecessary. Tiamat's tail lashed, carving a furrow through stone that golden energy immediately repaired. You emerge from dimensional absence and declare yourself sovereign without proving your worth. Dragons recognize strength, not titles from forgotten eras. Naruto nodded as though this reaction was entirely expected. And a demonstration would satisfy your draconic protocols. If you survive it. A rumblin' G sound emerged from Tiamat's massive chest, something between a growl and draconic laughter. The fox god of legend could match a dragon king in direct confrontation. Let us see if reality aligns with myth. Yusaka stepped forward, concern evident despite her diplomatic restraint. Lord Naruto, the summit preparations will proceed regardless. Naruto finished for her, his tone gentle but firm. Some traditions must be honored. Yusaka, dragon challenge protocols predate even my original governance. He turned his attention fully to Tiamat, something ancient and terrible briefly visible beneath his human appearance, a flicker of golden energy arranged in vulpine form, 9 tails spreading like a corona behind him. I accept your challenge, Chaos Karma Dragon, he declared formally. Rough combat shall understanding be achieved. Through conflict shall truth be revealed. The ritual words, spoken in a language that predated human civilization, seemed to resonate across dimensional boundaries. The very air vibrated with recognition as ancient protocols activated. Tiamat's massive form shimmered, contracting and reshaping itself into a more humanoid appearance, a tall, regal woman. With midnight blue hair cascading to her waist, draconic horns curving elegantly from her temples, scales still visible along her forearms and collarbones. Even in this compressed form, power radiated from her in palpable waves. The testing grounds, she stated, her voice now singular though still carrying harmonic undertones. Away from structures and observers. As tradition demands. Naruto nodded once, then gestured to the eastern edge of the mountain where a massive circular platform extended impossibly over empty space, a construction that hadn't existed minutes before. The arena of primal contention, he named it, manifested specifically for this purpose. Yusaka watched with wide eyes as both beings moved toward the newly created structure. She had heard legends of such arenas, dimensional spaces where beings of immense power could confront each other without risking collateral damage to the surrounding reality. To see one materialized through apparently effortless will walk. Yet another demonstration of the fox god's capabilities. The summit representatives will begin arriving soon, she said, finding her voice. What shall I tell them? The truth, Naruto replied without looking back. That ancient protocols are being honored. That foundations for the new order must be properly established. And that their patience will be rewarded with clarity. As Naruto and Tiamat stepped onto the arena platform, reality seemed to bend around them. The circular space expanded exponentially, creating a dimensional pocket that maintained connection to the physical world existing partially outside normal space-time constraints. Traditional parameters, Naruto inquired, rolling his shoulders casually as though preparing for nothing more strenuous than light exercise. Full draconic combat protocols, Tiamat confirmed, her humanoid form already beginning to shimmer with barely contained power. First blood is meaningless between immortals. This continues until submission or incapacitation. As you wish. Naruto's clothing transformed, the formal attire dissolving into a simpler battle garment, black hakama pants and a sleeveless orange kosode that left his arms bare. Intricate seal patterns became visible across his exposed skin, glowing softly with contained power. Tiamat didn't waste time on further ceremony. Her humanoid form exploded outward, turning to full draconic manifestation with a shock wave that would have leveled forests had they been in normal space. Blue flame erupted from her jaws in a concentrated stream hot enough to melt mountains. Directly targeting Naruto's position, he didn't dodge. Instead, his right hand extended, palm facing the oncoming inferno. The draconic flame, capable of reducing even supernatural beings to a split around his hand like water around stone, diverted by an invisible barrier of pure will. Elemental mastery remains impressive, Naruto commented, as though discussing the weather rather than withstanding apocalyptic fire. But predictable as an opening move. Tiamat roared in response, the sound containing harmonics that shattered reality itself. Cracks appeared in the dimensional fabric surrounding them, leaking chaotic energy from between worlds. She followed immediately with a physical attack, her massive tail whipping toward Naruto with speed that belied her enormous size. This time he moved, not away but toward the attack. Golden energy coalesced around his right arm as he met the tail strike directly, the collision generating a thunderclap that echoed across dimensional boundaries. The massive appendage, capable of shattering mountains, stopped dead against his braced forearm. Physical power remains consistent as well, Naruto noted, still conversational despite the enormous pressure against his block. Though your control has improved since our last encounter. We have never encountered, Tiamat insisted, frustration evident in her dual-toned voice. Your mind deteriorates across dimensional transitions. She disengaged, massive wings creating hurricane-force winds as she launched skyward, then plummeted in a diving attack that combined physical mass with draconic magic, a technique that had defeated gods in past confrontations. Naruto finally abandoned his casual demeanor. His eyes shifted fully to their vulpine state, vertical pupils narrowing as he gathered power that had remained carefully restrained until this moment. Golden energy erupted around him, taking vulpine shape, a massive fox composed of living chakra, a single tail manifested from 9 potential ones. He met Tiamat's diving attack with equal commitment, the fox avatar leaping to intercept. Their collision warped the dimensional arena itself, the boundaries flexing under pressure from powers that existed partially outside conventional reality. For several seconds, they remained locked in contest of pure strength, dragon against fox, primal forces pushing against each other with neither gaining advantage. Then Naruto shifted tactics, the fox avatar dissolving into golden particles that swarmed around Tiamat like living lightning. The dragon roared in surprise as these particles penetrated her scales, disrupting the perfect harmony of her draconic energy. She responded with a dimensional pulse, a rippling wave of chaotic power that scattered the golden particles and temporarily distorted space itself within the arena. Interesting, she acknowledged, genuine curiosity entering her voice beneath the aggression. Your energy signature differs from historical records. More refined, more integrated. Evolution occurs across iterations, Naruto replied, the scattered golden particles reforming around him as a partial manifestation, translucent fox features overlaying his human form. Though core nature remains consistent, their battle intensified, moving beyond physical exchanges into manipulation of fundamental forces. Tiamat commanded primal elements, water, fire, earth, air, and lightning combining in attacks that targeted not just physical form but the underlying energy matrices that composed Naruto's essence. He countered with techniques that demonstrated mastery of dimensional principles, shifting partially between reality states, manipulating time perception within localized fields, redirecting energy through pathways that shouldn't theoretically exist. To an observer with sufficient perception to witness the true nature of their contest, the physical attacks were merely symbolic representations of a much deeper conflict, ancient powers testing boundaries, probing defenses, establishing hierarchical position through direct energy comparison. Your connection to chaos remains pure, Naruto observed during a momentary pause in their exchange. Undiluted by faction politics or dimensional constraints. Admirable consistency. And your connection to natural order persists despite absence, Tiamat countered, her massive form circling the arena in a predatory pattern. Yet you incorporate chaos elements that previous manifestations rejected. This observation struck closer to truth than Tiamat likely realized. Naruto's smile acknowledged the insight without confirming specifics. Balance requires understanding of all cosmic principles, he replied. Even contradictory ones. Their battle resumed with redoubled intensity. Tiamat drawing upon powers rarely witnessed in the current cosmic iteration, dimensional rifts that leaked entropic force, gravitational distortions that bent light itself, temporal accelerations that created after images of attacks that existed simultaneously across probability spectra. Naruto matched these esoteric techniques with equally sophisticated counters, golden energy forming complex 3D-dimensional seals that locked dimensional boundaries in place, time-space manipulations that neutralized temporal attacks, probability adjustments that collapsed multiple potential outcomes into single definitive results. As their contest extended beyond normal combat parameters, a subtle shift occurred in its fundamental nature. What had begun as a challenge for dominance evolved into a complex dialogue conducted through power exchange, each technique revealing philosophical positions, each counter demonstrating alternative perspectives. "You seek restoration, not conquest," Tiamat observed during another momentary pause. Her draconic form showing signs of exertion despite her immense reserves. Yet restoration itself represents imposed order upon evolved systems. Evolution without foundational stability creates fragmentation, Naruto countered, his own energy signature fluctuating with controlled intensity. The current faction system lacks essential components for long-term cosmic balance. Perhaps, Tiamat acknowledged, surprising herself with this concession. Yet imposed correction contradicts natural development. Unless the correction itself represents return to a natural state rather than artificial intervention, Naruto suggested. Their philosophical exchange continued through renewed combat, each physical clash representing contested ideological positions. Gradually, the nature of their confrontation transformed from adversarial to investigative, two ancient beings examining fundamental principles through direct power comparison. After what might have been minutes or hours in normal time perception, Tiamat initiated a final, committal attack. Her massive form gathered chaotic energy from beyond conventional dimensional boundaries, compressing it into a singularity of pure destructive potential. "Survive this," she challenged, "and your claim merits consideration." The compressed chaos erupted toward Naruto in a beam of power that transcended conventional elemental classification, a fundamental attack against existence itself. Within the dimensional arena, reality warped dangerously around this manifestation of pure entropy. Naruto's response revealed why legends of the Fox God inspired both awe and terror across civilizations. For the first time in the battle, he manifested multiple tails, not just one but three enormous appendages of Elden energy extending from his fox avatar. Each tail represented distinct cosmic authority, moving in perfect synchronization to weave a barrier between dimensions. The chaotic beam struck this interdimensional barrier and simply ceased to exist. Not deflected, not absorbed, but fundamentally negated, as though the attack had encountered an aspect of reality that rendered its very concept invalid. Silence fell across the arena. Tiamat's massive form hovered, draconic eyes wide with something approaching genuine shock. "Impossible," she stated flatly. "That technique cannot be neutralized. It operates on principles beyond conventional countermeasures." "Conventional frameworks are precisely what we're discussing," Naruto replied calmly, the three manifested tails fading back to a single one. Then dissolving entirely into ambient golden energy. "Your chaos manipulation remains unparalleled, Tiamat. But you attack from within a system I helped design." This statement, delivered without arrogance or condescension, nevertheless carried implications that visibly impacted the dragon's demeanor. Her massive form lowered slightly, not in submission but in reassessment. "You claim design authority over fundamental forces." Her tone held skepticism, yet lacked its earlier dismissive quality. "Not alone," Naruto clarified. "Cosmic architecture emerged through collaboration across dimensional iterations. Dragons, particularly chaos aspects, contributed essential components." His eyes reflected ancient memory. "Your contributions specifically shaped probability matrices within the Nine Realms framework." This statement triggered something deep within Tiamat's consciousness, not quite memory, but recognition that transcended conventional recollection. Her form shimmered, contracting once more to humanoid appearance, though power continued radiating from her in barely contained waves. "We've had this conversation before," she said, her voice now singular, carrying complex harmonic undertones of realization. "Not this iteration, not this form, but before." "Yes," Naruto confirmed simply. "Across cycles, different manifestations, consistent essence." Tiamat approached slowly, studying him with eyes that held the wisdom of eons despite their draconic verticality. "Your power is sufficient," she acknowledged formally. "Your claim has foundation." It wasn't quite submission in the traditional sense. But within draconic protocols, it represented recognition of legitimate authority, provisional acceptance pending further evidence. The Dragon Kings will observe your summit with interest. She continued. I shall convey what I have witnessed to my counterparts. Naruto inclined his head, acknowledging both her decision and the honor it represented. Your perspective will be valued. Chaos Karma Dragon, as it always has been. With formal combat protocols satisfied, the dimensional arena began contracting, reality folding back to normal parameters as they returned to the physical mountain. Yusaka awaited them at the edge of the platform, having witnessed what portions of their confrontation could be perceived from conventional space. The summit representatives have begun arriving. She informed them, her composed expression betraying nothing of what she might have observed. Sears Lucifer and his entourage reached the base of the mountain 20 minutes ago. Michael and Gabriel arrived moments later. Perfect timing, Naruto noted, his battle attire transforming back to formal robes with a mere thought. Tiamat, will you join us for the formal proceedings? The dragon woman considered briefly before nodding. My presence will ensure dragon interests receive proper representation. As they walked toward the main shrine complex, Tiamat fell into step beside Naruto. Her expression thoughtful. You pulled your final counter, she observed quietly. The barrier you created could have reversed my attack rather than merely neutralizing it. Combat protocols require demonstration, not destruction, Naruto replied. Besides, dragons are essential to cosmic balance. Damaging one of the 5 kings would be counterproductive. Amat studied him with renewed assessment. You've changed since the legends. The fox god of historical accounts was more absolute in his approaches. Naruto smiled slightly, the same observation Yusaka and Azazel had independently made. Forms adapt to functions required, he said. This iteration calls for integration before assertion. For now, the qualification hung between them, a reminder that beneath diplomatic approaches lay power capable of neutralizing a Dragon King's ultimate attack without maximum effort. Tiamat nodded in acknowledgement, understanding the implicit hierarchy bind. G established despite the courteous presentation. As they approached the main shrine, the gathered representatives came into view, a collection of the supernatural world's most powerful beings assembled in unprecedented convergence. Gabriel had never expected to witness such a gathering in her long existence. As the most beautiful of the seraphs and among heaven's most powerful representatives, she had participated in numerous significant events across millennia. Yet the assembly forming on sacred Fox Mountain transcended historical precedent. Beside her, Michael maintained perfect seraphic composure. 12 golden wings folded neatly behind him as they awaited formal proceedings. Across the courtyard, Sears Lucifer stood with Graphia and a small devil delegation that included his sister Rias. Azazel had positioned himself in calculated neutrality between the traditional adversaries, his casual demeanor belying sharp assessment of every detail. Less familiar to Gabriel were the representatives from factions typically considered peripheral to supernatural politics, Yusaka representing yokai, several hooded figures from Norse and Greek pantheons, and now, surprisingly, Tiam. In humanoid form walking alongside their enigmatic host. Dragon participation was unexpected, Michael murmured, his voice calibrated to reach only Gabriel's ears. Their isolation has been consistent since the Great War. Everything about this situation defies expectation, Gabriel replied, her melodious voice equally private despite their public setting. The celestial archives confirm it. This being's return represents cosmic significance beyond traditional faction politics. Before Michael could respond, silence fell across the gathering as Naruto reached the central position on the shrine steps. Yusaka and Tiamat flanking him in a symbolism not lost on the assembled representatives. Welcome, Naruto began, his voice carrying effortlessly despite its conversational tone. Your presence honors ancient protocols and acknowledges cosmic realities too long obscured by factional perspective. His eyes, shifting subtly between human blue and vulpine crimson, scanned the gathering with calm assessment. Some of you come seeking confirmation of historical accounts. Others seek advantage in changing circumstances. Still others approach with genuine curiosity about cosmic truths long forgotten. Gabriel felt those unusual eyes linger momentarily on her, as though recognizing something specific in her celestial essence. The sensation was both unsettling and strangely familiar. Like encountering a song remembered from earliest existence. All perspectives are valid, Naruto continued. All questions deserve honest address. But first, formal acknowledgement of what has already occurred. The 9 realms stir from dormancy. The original cosmic framework reasserts fundamental patterns. Reality itself remembers its proper structure. He gestured expansively, and the air arrow. The entire mountain shimmered with sudden visibility, revealing energy patterns that had remained imperceptible even to supernatural senses. 9 distinct networks of golden light interconnected in complex matrices, flowing through and around all gathered representatives regardless of faction. These patterns exist independent of belief or acknowledgement, Naruto stated. They form the Fundame, NTAL architecture upon which all subsequent systems, including the 3 factions framework, were constructed. My return simply makes visible what always remained present. Sears stepped forward, high. Power carefully contained yet palpable in its immensity. The sealed archives speak of a cosmology predating Devil Society, he acknowledged diplomatically. But records remain fragmentary regarding practical implications for current governance structures. A deliberate omission during the Great War, Naruto confirmed without accusation. Knowledge of the 9 realms framework threatened paradigms being established through conflict. Its suppression served all combatants equally. Azazel's laugh broke the formal atmosphere. Convenient historical editing, each faction preserving only details that supported their authority claims. He stroked his goatee thoughtfully. Though I suspect Heaven's archives retained more comprehensive records than most. All eyes turned to Michael, whose Renee's expression revealed nothing of the complex calculations undoubtedly occurring behind it. We preserved what we were entrusted to maintain, the Seraph leader stated carefully. Including referring CES to collaborative creation that predate current cosmic understanding. This diplomatic acknowledgement, neither confirming nor denying Naruto's implicit authority claims, demonstrated why Michael had maintained Heaven's leadership through difficult transitions. Gabriel, however, felt compelled toward greater transparency. The oldest celestial records, she said, her voice carrying the purity that defined her essence. Describe a cosmic council that established fundamental principles before individual domains emerged. The Fox God's position within that council was significant. Naruto inclined his head slightly in her direction, acknowledgement without presumption. Memory serves Heaven well, he said. Though perspective necessarily filtered through subsequent theological frameworks. Tiamat, who had remained silent since their return from combat, suddenly spoke. Dragons remember differently, she stated, drawing surprised attention from many representatives. We recall the Fox God not through records or theology, but through fundamental resonance. His energy signature exists within cosmic architecture itself. Coming from a dragon king, beings notorious for acknowledging no authority beyond their own power, this statement carried particular weight. Several representatives exchanged significant glances, reassessing their diplomatic positions in response. This historical context, while fascinating, leaves practical questions unanswered, Sears noted, maintaining focus on governance implications. What specifically does restoration of this 9 realms framework mean for existing faction territories and authorities? Transcendence rather than replacement, Naruto replied, using the same terminology he'd employed in previous individual discussions. Current Eastoms maintain internal governance within a more comprehensive cosmic structure. With you as ultimate authority, Azazel observed, making explicit what others approached indirectly. With proper hierarchical recognition, Naruto qualified, my interest lies in foundational balance, not micromanagement of established systems. As diplomatic exchanges continued, Gabriel found her attention draw to subtle details others might overlook. The way reality itself seemed to bend slightly around Naruto, as though conventional dimensional constraints applied differently to his existence, how the mountain responded to his presence. Energy flowing through stone and soil in patterns suggesting sentience, the way even Tiamat, a being of legendary pride, oriented herself in unconscious acknowledgement of his position. These observations, combined with what she had discovered in Heaven's most restricted archives, painted a picture far more complex than simple power politics. The being before them represented something fundamental to reality itself, not a god in the conventional sense, but an aspect of cosmic architecture given conscious form. Gabriel's contemplations were interrupted when she noticed Naruto's attention shift subtly, his expression changing from diplomatic engagement to focused awareness. Following his gaze, she perceived nothing unusual, yet clearly something had alerted him to conditions beyond ordinary perception. A demonstration approaches, he said, interrupting ongoing discussion between Searsex and Azazel. Unexpected, but perhaps necessary for complete understanding. Before anyone could question this cryptic statement, the atmosphere changed. Temperature dropped several degrees instantly as reality distorted at the edge of the gathering. A-dimensional, tear-formed, crude compared to proper teleportation techniques, forcing rather than finessing passage between spaces. Through this jagged opening poured humanoid figures in dark clothing, each wearing identical masks engraved with serpentine symbols. Their auras registered as a mixture of devil, human, and something corrupted beyond easy classification. Chaos Brigade, Searsex identified immediately. Power of destruction gathering around his hands. Old Satan faction specifically. Unexpected guests, Azazel commented dryly, light spears manifesting between his fingers. Though their timing seems suspiciously convenient, the intruders spread out in practiced formation, focusing primarily on Yusaka rather than the arguably more powerful beings present. Their leader, distinguished by or elaborate mask decorations, stepped forward with arrogant confidence. The false convergence ends now, he declared, voice distorted through the mask. The old order will not be supplanted by forgotten myths and cooperative weaknesses. Quote, Gabriel prepared for combat, holy light gathering around her 12 wings as Michael moved to defensive position beside her. Across the courtyard, the devil delegation adopted similar readiness, while Tiamat's human form shimmered with barely constrained draconic energy. Yet Naruto made no move toward either defense or aggression. He observed the interruption with what appeared almost like academic interest. Fascinating timing, he noted conversationally. Almost as though you received intelligence about this gathering and prepared specifically to disrupt it. Yet your focus suggests incomplete information about attendees. The masked leader faltered slightly before regaining composure. The fox god is a fabrication. A myth created to suggest prehistoric unity that never existed. We come for the Kitsune leader, the linchpin in this carefully orchestrated deception. This claim, that Yusaka rather than Naruto represented the primary target, said ripples of realization among the gathered representatives. The attack wasn't aimed at disrupting the summit directly, but at removing the yokai faction's leadership at a critical diplomatic juncture. Sloppy intelligence gathering, Azazel commented, clearly unimpressed. You might want to reassess the situation before committing to this particular mistake. The intruders hesitated, finally, registering the full assembly of power before them, multiple faction leaders including beings capable of devastating entire regions without maximum effort. Yet their leader pressed forward, suggesting either supreme confidence or information unknown to the gathering. Commence primary protocol, he ordered, making a complex gesture that activated magic circles beneath 7 specific intruders. These circles pulsed with corrupted energy, their occupants convulsing as power flowed into them from external sources. Transformation array, Michael identified, concern evident in his usually serene voice. They're channeling something through those vessels. Gabriel recognized the technique from ancient records, living conduits being sacrificed to manifest entities from beyond conventional dimensional boundaries. Summoning, she clarified, but what could they possibly? Her question answered itself as the 7 intruders collapsed into puddles of corrupted matter, from which emerged serpentine forms composed of shadow and malice, entities that shouldn't exist in the current reality framework. Void serpents, Tiamat hissed, genuine alarm replacing her usual draconic arrogance. Sealed during the primordial purge, their manifestation should be impossible without original creation materials, Naruto finished, his casual demeanor finally dropping. Interesting. Someone has been excavating very old sites, recovering artifacts that predate current cosmic iterations. The serpentine entities, each approximately 20 feet long with bodies that seem to exist partially outside conventional reality, moved with unnatural speed toward Yusaka. Their trajectory suggested not assassination but capture, a distinction that raised even more concerning implications about the attacker's intentions. Before any faction representatives could intervene, Naruto simply stepped. The movement defied normal physical laws, placing him instantly between the Void Serpents and their target. His expression had transformed from diplomatic leader to something ancient and terrible, the fox god of legend whose wrath reshaped continents. "You invoke entities from beyond the boundaries," he stated, voice resonating with harmonics that vibrated through dimensional layers. "You corrupt creation materials for temporary advantage. You violate foundational protocols established before your faction existed." Golden energy erupted around him, not in the fox avatar form witnessed during his battle with Tiamat, but as 9 distinct energy constructs, each representing different fundamental aspects of reality. These constructs interposed themselves between the Void Serpents and the gathered representatives, creating a barrier that transcended conventional defensive techniques. "Let this serve as practical demonstration," Naruto announced to the legitimate summit attendees, even as he engaged the intruders. The 9 Realms framework exists not merely for governance distribution, but for fundamental reality protection. Quote, "What followed was less a battle than a systematic reality correction. The Void Serpents, entities that would have required combined effort from multiple Factio N leaders to contain, encountered principles they couldn't overcome. Their forms, designed to exist partially outside conventional reality, found themselves fully materialized and thus vulnerable to NDA mental laws they had evolved to circumvent. Naruto's movements combined impossible speed with perfect precision, golden energy extensions functioning as cosmic editing tools rather than conventional weapons. Each contact point rewrote the serpents' existence parameters, forcing compliance with natural laws their creation had specifically violated. The Chaos Brigade leader, witnessing his summoned entities systematically neutralized, initiated what appeared to be a contingency protocol, a massive magic circle encompassing the entire confrontation area, its symbols suggesting dimensional collapse rather than conventional destruction. "He's trying to collapse this entire dimensional pocket," Searsex warned, moving to counter the technique with his own considerable power. If successful, the feedback could destabilize the mountain's entire energy matrix. Before the Lucifer could intervene, Naruto addressed the threat with disturbing simplicity. He merely looked at the expanding circle, eyes shifting fully to their vulpine state, and said a single word in a language that predated human civilization. The magic circle didn't dissipate or shatter, it simply ceased to exist, as thou retroactively removed from reality's continuity. The Chaos Brigade leader staggered backward, blood trickling from beneath his mask as the severed connection to his technique caused metaphysical backlash. "Impossible," he whispered, genuine fear replacing arrogance. That was anchored in principles that transcend conventional countermeasures. "Yes," Naruto agreed simply. "Principles I helped establish." With the Void Serpents neutralized and their primary contingency negated, the remaining intruders found themselves in an untenable position, surrounded by the supernatural world's most powerful beings. Their advantage thoroughly nullified. Several attempted emergency teleportation, only to discover dimensional transit locally restricted by the mountain's activated security systems. Quote, "Conventional faction politics suggest prisoners for interrogation," Naruto observed, turning to address the legitimate representatives. "However, these individuals have knowingly manipulated creation materials in violation of foundational protocols. The appropriate response transcends normal jurisdiction." Tiamat stepped forward, her draconic nature fully evident despite her humanoid form. In ancient times, such violations fell under purification protocols rather than political justice. Indeed, Michael confirmed, surprising many with his immediate support of the dragon's position. N's oldest records describe specific procedures for entities who corrupt fundamental materials. Gabriel nodded agreement. "These aren't merely criminals but cosmic contaminants." Standard faction Tice wouldn't address the metaphysical implications of their actions. The consensus forming, supernatural leaders from traditionally opposed factions reaching immediate agreement on procedure, rated the seriousness with which they viewed this violation. Even Searsex, typically inclined toward gathering intelligence from prisoners, raised no objection to the emerging protocol assessment. Naruto acknowledged their input with a respectful nod before turning his attention back to the intruders. "You sought demonstration of authority claims," he noted with ironic understatement. "Allow me to oblige." Golden energy coalesced around his right hand, forming complex three-dimensional patterns that shifted through geometric configurations too quickly for most observers to track. With deliberate precision, he pressed this energy matrix against the dimensional fabric itself, creating a localized reality modification that encompassed only the intruders. By authority vested in the Nine Realms governance, I enact Purification Protocol 7, he stated formally. Entities who knowingly corrupt creation materials forfeit dimensional residence privileges within managed reality frameworks. The intruders began fading from conventional perception, not dying in the traditional sense, but being systematically removed from the reality construct they had violated. Their forms grew transparent, expressions of shock visible on faces revealed as masks dissolved with their physical forms. This isn't execution, Naruto explained to the observing representatives, but dimensional expatriation. They return to raw potential outside structured reality, where natural cosmic processes will eventually reintegrate their essence into appropriate frameworks. Within moments, the intruders had vanished completely, leaving no trace of their presence except disturbed energy patterns that the mountain's systems quickly reharmonized. The entire confrontation, from initial intrusion to resolution, had occurred in less than 5 minutes. Silence fell across the gathering as representatives processed what they had witnessed, not merely impressive combat capabilities, but fundamental reality manipulation beyond conventional supernatural understanding. Even beings of immense power like Sirzek and Michael had observed techniques that transcended their cosmological frameworks. Well, Azazel said finally, breaking the tension with characteristic irreverence, that was certainly more convincing than additional historical references. A ripple of relieved laughter spread through the gathering, diplomatic composure reasserting itself after the unexpected demonstration. Representatives who had maintained careful neutrality regarding Naruto's authority claims now reassessed their positions based on direct observation. Yasaka, who had been the ostensible target of the attack, approached Naruto with formal dignity. The Fox God's protection honors his children, she stated, using Tr. Additional phrasing from Kitsune's ceremonial language. Kyoto acknowledges the sovereignty of the Nine Tails. This formal recognition, the first explicit acknowledgement of hierarchical position from an established faction leader, carried significant diplomatic weight. All eyes turned to Naruto, assessing how he would respond to this potential realignment of supernatural politics. His answer demonstrated the diplomatic precision that had characterized his approach since arriving. Kyoto's sovereignty remains intact within the Nine Realms framework, he replied. The Fox God honors faithful stewardship through continued autonomy. The exchange established important precedent, recognition of overarching authority balanced with confirmation of continued local governance. Other faction representatives noted this formula with careful attention, already considering how similar acknowledgments might be structured for their own domains. I believe, Michael said into the contemplative silence that followed, that recent events have provided substantial clarity regarding questions of historical authenticity and practical authority. Heaven acknowledges the validity of Nine Realms cosmology as described in our oldest records. This statement, carefully worded to recognize historical facts without explicitly addressing current governance implications, nevertheless represented significant support from the angelic faction. Gabriel stood beside her brother, her expression revealing more openness to these developments than Michael's diplomatic neutrality suggested. Sirzek, ever the strategic thinker, recognized the shifting diplomatic landscape. The underworld acknowledges historical significance and appreciates today's demonstration of protective capabilities, he offered, matching Michael's measured recognition while maintaining necessary political flexibility. Azazel didn't bother with diplomatic phrasing. The Gregory recognizes reality regardless of political convenience, he stated bluntly. The Nine Realms framework clearly exists, and equally clearly functions under the Fox God's authority. Pretending otherwise would be pointlessly obtuse. Tiamat, representing draconic interests, simply inclined her head in formal acknowledgement, having already established her position through direct combat assessment. As formal recognitions continued from various representatives, Gabriel found herself studying Naruto with increasing fascination. Despite the impressive power demonstration, his demeanor remained measured, neither gloating over confirmed authority nor pressing advantage against those still maintaining diplomatic caution. This restraint contrasted sharply with historical accounts she had reviewed in Heaven's archives, which described the Fox God as absolute in authority expression and uncompromising in cosmic governance. The being before them demonstrated sophisticated diplomatic awareness alongside power that could literally rewrite localized reality parameters. When the formal recognitions concluded, Naruto addressed the gathering once more. Today marks beginning rather than conclusion, he stated. The Nine Realms restoration proceeds regardless of political acknowledgement. But cooperation creates smoother transition than resistance. He gestured, and the shrine's main building transformed, interior space expanding impossibly to reveal a massive council chamber designed with perfect symbolic balance. 9 distinct sections accommodated different faction representatives, while a central position represented unified governance. Detail. Discussions require appropriate setting, Naruto explained as representatives followed him into this manifestation of supernatural politics reimagined. Individual faction concerns deserve thorough address within comprehensive context. As they settled into this unprecedented council configuration, Gabriel found herself positioned near Naruto due to Heaven's traditional placement in cosmic hierarchies. This proximity allowed her to observe details others might miss, subtle variations in his energy signature when addressing different topics, momentary expressions that suggested awareness extending far beyond current conversations. During a brief transition between discussion segments, she gathered courage to address him directly despite the formal setting. The Celestial Archives, she said softly, pitching her voice for his ears alone, contain references to collaborative creation that include entities described similarly to yourself. Yet details regarding specific contributions remain deliberately obscured. Naruto turned to her, something ancient and knowing in his eyes despite his youthful appearance. Some knowledge was deemed too fundamental for factional possession, he replied equally quietly. The biblical God understood dangers in complete cosmic disclosure. Yet you return now, making that disclosure inevitable, Gabriel observed. Because balance requires it, he confirmed. Cosmic cycles reach points where hidden foundations must be revealed to prevent structural collapse. This explanation aligned with patterns Gabriel had detected in Heaven's oldest records, references to cyclical cosmic corrections when existing systems deviated too far from foundational principles. The implications disturbed traditional angelic understanding of creation history, yet resonated with her deepest intuitions about cosmic architecture. Heaven's system continues functioning despite Father's absence, she noted, unconsciously using the familiar term for God rather than formal title. But vulnerabilities increase as distance from original establishment grows. Naruto nodded, appreciation for her insight evident in his expression. Systems designed for perpetua guidance require periodic recalibration when that guidance withdraws. The Nine Realms framework provides structural support during such transitions. This perspective, positioning his return as supportive rather than supplanting, offered potential resolution to concerns troubling Heaven's leadership since God's death. Gabriel found herself considering implications beyond traditional angelic doctrine, perspectives that might once have been considered dangerously innovative. Their conversation paused as formal discussions resumed, but something had shifted in Gabriel's understanding, not merely intellectual reassessment but intuitive recognition of principles that transcended conventional theology. As the summit continued through complex negotiations and detailed governance discussions, representatives gradually aligned into 3 broad positions: those who embraced Nine Realms restoration as cosmic necessity, those who acknowledged its validity while maintaining cautious political distance, and a small minority who continued questioning both historical authenticity and current authority implications. This distribution, heavily weighted toward acceptance with variations in enthusiasm, established sufficient consensus for formal protocols despite lingering reservations from some participants. By late afternoon, preliminary agreements had been reached regarding transition processes, territorial recognitions, and communication frameworks between traditional factions and restored realm categories. Throughout these discussions, Naruto maintained balanced diplomacy while demonstrating comprehensive understanding of each faction's concerns, addressing devil territorial questions with the same detailed attention as angelic theological implications or yokai cultural preservation priorities. As formal proceedings concluded for the day, representatives departed for accommodations prepared throughout the mountain complex, conversations continuing in smaller groups as implications were processed and strategies refined. Gabriel, however, lingered in the council chamber, drawn by questions too fundamental for public discussion. Naruto, seeming to anticipate her intention, remained as well. When others had departed, he approached with the same measured presence that had characterized his diplomatic conduct throughout. "You have questions beyond political implications," he observed. "Theological ones, I suspect." Quote. Gabriel nodded, her 12 golden wings shifting slightly with emotional intensity despite her outward composure. The oldest celestial texts describe Kriti on as collaborative rather than singular. They reference a council of fundamental aspects that established cosmic architecture before individual domains emerged. Her voice remained steady despite heretical implications of her next question. Was Father one among equals rather than ultimate creator? The question would have shocked most angels, potentially even Michael despite his pragmatic leadership. It challenged foundational assumptions of celestial hierarchy and divine authority that had defined heaven's existence since its establishment. Naruto considered his response carefully, clearly recognizing the significance of both question and answer. Cosmic architecture emerged through complementary contributions, he confirmed. What angels call Father represented divine will and conceptual ideation, essential components, but functioning within collaborative framework rather than isolation. He paused, assessing Gabriel's reaction before continuing. This doesn't diminish divine significance. Without conceptual ideation, material implementation lacks purpose. The biblical God's contribution shaped reality's meaning and direction in ways no other entity could provide. This perspective, acknowledging divine importance while placing it within broader cosmic context, offered resolution to contradictions Gabriel had detected in heaven's oldest records without undermining the genuine reverence she felt for her creator. The system he established continues functioning on foundations he designed, Naruto added with gentleness that suggested understanding of her emotional investment in these questions. The Nine Realms framework supports rather than replaces those foundations, providing structural integrity during transition periods when original guidance becomes less direct. Gabriel absorbed this explanation, integrating it with her own observations and intuitions formed through millennia of celestial service. Heaven's purpose remains valid, she concluded softly, even within this more comprehensive cosmology. Not merely valid but essential, Naruto confirmed. Conceptual ideation and moral framework provide meaning to material existence. The Nine Realms restore balance, not replacement. Quote, this conversation, addressing questions more fundamental than any Gabriel had dared articulate even to Michael, shifted her perspective on current developments. What had initially appeared potentially threatening to heaven's position now seemed supportive of its essential functions while offering structural reinforcement during a challenging transition period. Thank you, she said simply, genuine gratitude in her melodious voice. For honesty without condescension, for explanation without demands. Naruto inclined his head, acknowledging both her KS and the courage her questions had required. Truth serves all realms equally, he replied, even when temporarily obscured by factional perspective. As Gabriel departed to rejoin her brother and process these revelations, she carried not only new understanding of cosmic architecture but also growing recognition of the fox god's nature, not merely powerful but fundamentally integrated with reality's essential structure in ways that transcended conventional supernatural categories. The summit would continue for days, addressing countless details of governance transition and faction integration within the restored framework. But the essential foundation had been established through direct demonstration, diplomatic exchange, and fundamental truth acknowledgement that even the most cautious representatives couldn't entirely dismiss. The Nine Realms were awakening, reality remembering its original structure, not through conquest or theological revision, but through recognition of what always existed beneath faction divisions and historical obscuration. And at the center of this cosmic remembrance stood Naruto Uzumaki, the fox god emperor whose return marked not merely political realignment but fundamental reality restoration, a process that would transform supernatural existence while honoring what each faction had built during his long absence. The wheel turned, the ninth rose, and reality itself recalled its proper form. Chapter 3 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.